Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to a webinar with a guy who I've enjoyed talking to. I had the privilege to meet him about matters about MassPage. I've talked in his group a couple of times, and today we get to talk to Bradley Benner from Semantic Mastery. Hey, Bradley, how are you?
I'm great, Daryl. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very happy to have you, and definitely glad to have you on a holiday here. For folks that are in the United States, it's a holiday weekend for a lot of people to have today off. A lot of working people don't. That see a lot of parking lots full around our community of people working hard today. So here we are working hard, right, Bradley?
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
yeah, so just first off, put yourself in the chat, your name and where you're checking in from today. We got Henry in Houston. We got Jeff in Long Island, New York. I know Jeff, he comes to some of our stuff from time to time. So go ahead and put in the questions box your name and where you're from. And then one other thing, I'd love to have you, what would be a win for you today? What could we talk about that would really make your day worthwhile in this training? So I would love to hear that in the questions box. But once we get going, we're not going to take a whole lot of questions until the end, and we'll have plenty of time to answer your questions after things get going. Charles, welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm a little under the weather. I know I don't sound it, but I've been having headaches and high temperatures. I've been tested for COVID, all negative on that so far. So just had a small cough and stuff like that. So hopefully it will be okay for the next couple days through the week. We'll see. But anyway, welcome to everybody. And we will have this as a replay. So if you absolutely can't stay, it'll be on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to check it out on there. There's going to be some real golden nuggets. So if you can stay and you can take advantage of the Bradley's time to ask your questions, this is the place to be today, so that you can answer those important questions. And one of the things before we get started is Bradley, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Sure. My
Uh,
pleasure.
One of the things that I was curious about before I got started was why Google My Business, right? Why are these listings important? And as a kind of SEO guy myself and mass page guy myself, we started out with organic, and then kind of paid came in, and then GMBs came in, and now there's sort of Google approved listings. But if you have ever looked, and I don't know if this is part of your presentation or not, but Google results, I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is a breakdown from last year, back in July. I'm sure it's probably changed a little bit since, but obviously Google owns a huge share of the audience for search. Just clearly 92% is just total domination, right? And of those searches, about 46% of that is local intent searches, according to these folks at AdPlorer, okay? Take that for, whatever the standard deviation is. It could go back and forth, whatever it might be, but let's just say this is near accurate, right? The question is, how many percentage of people are clicking on paid, right? And so just curious, Bright Local said about 14% of the searches go to paid listings. That's kind of me. Like I a lot of times skip the paid. I just, for some reason, do. I don't know if it's because I've been doing SEO for a long time, but I kind of want to see like a little bit further down. But if you take a look, there's local service ads, right? And these are for sale by Google for home service businesses and local service ads. And they get about 13%, right? And I was like, wow, I thought that it would be more than that,
Yeah.
right? I really thought there'd be more. And then you've got the shopping ads, which, people typically just go, right to Amazon because you get the biggest selection right there. But the Google video ads and this shopping ads are still under 20%. So here we come to Google My Business in the local map pack. And would you guess this? About 30% of clicks went to Google My Business. 30% of the entire page, after all the paid, everything else, you know, it's amazing, incredible, because back in the day, it was all about your natural listings. Well, if you go down here and you see what is your natural listings getting you your organic traffic, they basically say about 40 to 50% of the clicks.
Which is interesting, Daryl, if I can add to that, because in my industry, I work with one industry, which is tree service contractors, and some closely related industries like land clearing contractors and excavating contractors, and some, to a lesser degree, some landscaping contractors. And out of the data, I've been doing this for about 10 years, working with tree contractors since 2012. And I've done everything in Google, including ads, and so search PPC. And out of all of my data, only 5% of the leads over the last 10 years have come from Google Ads. 80% have come from Google Maps, and
wow.
the remaining 15% have come from the organic section. So that's why for several years, all I focused on was Google, the GMB, Google My Business, because it was like, if I'm going to put all my effort into learning how to generate leads in Google, I'm going to put them where the leads are the most leads are generated, which was through the GMB section, the Maps 3-pack.
Yeah, it seems like it is the most trusted part of the page. I think some people are skeptical, maybe myself included, of just clear ads, right?
Yeah.
We're trained to kind of skip the ads when we're watching TV programming and things like that. We just think, we have this kind of attitude that if it's an ad, it's like sort of bought opinion about something. Whereas the map, you use maps for reference, right? You use maps for, you used to use the yellow pages, and it was like sort of, okay, this is an official business because it's in the yellow pages, right? So, I mean, you clearly have a level of trust. You're seeing here with your statistic as 80% is huge.
Yeah.
With GMBs that you just don't have on other parts of the SERP. So I think, that's why we're all here today. We're anxious and eager to hear, what Bradley has to say about GMBs. But man, I mean, wow, the idea that GMBs can change your business's future and maybe keep you in business, this is time to listen up and open up your ears, because what Bradley's going to talk about could be, the lifeblood of your business going forward with getting leads and whatnot. So yeah, just that was just one of the things I wanted to start off. Anything you want to add before you kind of kickstart your training?
Yeah, just one thing, Daryl. But just by the way, I don't know if my permissions aren't correct in GoToWebinar, but I'm unable to see the Q&A box, as well as I am unable to post or see any comments from anybody other than panelists or.
Okay, let me see if I can figure that out.
Organizers, yeah, I can't see any attendees, questions, or comments. So either one of those.
I will try to hit the settings and try to figure that out. But
okay.
Was there anything you wanted to add, or before we?
No, I'm ready to go if you are, because I got a lot to get through, guys. I'm going to try to keep the tempo kind of fast so I can get through as much as I can today without it taking too much time. By the way, Daryl, how much time do we have for this scheduled?
Whatever you need. I'm good. Okay. I gave you presenter role. Does that give you any more control? Let me.
I'm not seeing any change. Let me check.
Okay. We do see your screen.
Yeah, okay, good. I do not see a Q&A box on the right side, or I'd see the chat box, but again, all it's allowing me to do is chat to organizers and panelists, Daryl, or staff. That's it. It's not, I'm not seeing everyone's comments, so I'm not sure where. Okay. I'm not a GoToWebinar guy. I'm a Zoom guy, so I can't really help with that.
In the future, I don't plan to be a GoToWebinar guy either. This has been kind of a bad year with this, but let's see. I'll play around with it. If you want to get started, we can see your screen, and I'll handle the questions until I get this all straightened out for you.
Okay, no worries. All right, so guys, we're going to go through a lot, like I said, really quickly. I'm going to try to provide as much information as I can so that you guys understand what I want to convey throughout this presentation. And what's more important than the presentation is the GMB Process Checklist that you guys are going to get access to, and I'm going to give you that link here in like just a moment so you can go get access to it immediately. That way, if you got to go, you can go. You can always watch the replay at a later time. But this is a process that I've developed over the last 6 months of really testing hard. And I'll give you kind of an example why. I started a directory site at the end of last year so that I could start really reaching out to my target prospects, which are tree service contractors. And so I started to build out a directory site and using that as a foot in the door strategy contractors and send them, you know, like an email sequence, and you can do voicemail drops as well as SMS text messaging and all that kind of stuff too. Basically, I'm reaching out to them saying, hey, I'm just trying to confirm your company's information before I publish a page on the treecarehq.com contractor directory site. Can you confirm the following details? And I basically post the information that I've used, you know, a scraping tool to collect. And whenever I get a positive reply back, either somebody confirming their, a contractor confirming their information or sending me some sort of correction because something I have is inaccurate, then they automatically go into my pipeline, and that begins kind of like the whole sales cycle and outreach. So in other words, I turn straight cold contacts into warm contacts using my directory, which is a tree service contractor directory site. Again, that's at treecarehq.com, which stands for like treecareheadquarters.com. If anybody's interested in checking it out, go do that. That's not what this training is about, but I'm just giving you some background story. And so I started getting more clients in the doors, as well as over the years, I built up a pretty sizable portfolio of lead generation assets that are digital assets that I own, almost exclusively with Google My Business assets. So Google My Business profiles or locations. And so I use the directory site now as a way to prospect for both clients for my agency, as well as to find service providers to buy leads from me, either buy leads on a pay per lead basis, or what my preferred model is what I call a revenue share model, which is where the tree contractors only pay for leads that they close into actual jobs. So they close a sale, and then I get 10% of whatever the contract price was. And that's my preferred model for monetizing my lead gen assets. And so long story short, I started getting some new clients in, as well as, like I said, I have a portfolio of my own lead generation assets, which was almost exclusively built in Google My Business. And around June, so I started to need to, I was trying to get a repeatable process down for ranking GMBs, something that I could keep track of all that I've learned over the years and kind of developed in for ranking Google My Business profiles. And for several years there, guys, I didn't care about organic rankings at all. It didn't matter to me because again, my own data had shown that 80% of all the leads that I've generated over the last decade of working in this industry has been through the Google My Business section, the Maps 3-pack. So it really made no sense for me to spend any more effort. Now, some of my clients have me manage Google Ads for them. So I still do run Google Ads, and I also use Google Ads for Google Display Ads and YouTube ads for very specific reasons as well. But mainly for generating leads, it's been the Google My Business assets. And organic stuff didn't really matter to me much because it was only, 15% of the overall leads that I've generated come from organic section. And that's nothing to like sneeze at, right? I mean, that's still a pretty sizable chunk. But if I was going to, like I said, spend time and effort and money on getting results, I'm going to spend it where, the bulk of the results come from. And that was from Google My Business. So, over the years, I've developed lots of processes, lots of techniques, methods, tactics to rank GMBs or Google My Business profiles, but it was all in my head. Like I hadn't really documented everything. And so when I started to scale up my agency using the directory site, I started to need to figure out a way to make it easier for me to know where every project was, or any project was at any given time. And so I had to get it out of my head into something. So I started to use about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started using this service called Process Street. It's at process.st, which is just kind of like a process like training and checklist. You'll see what I mean in just a minute, because we're going to get into the checklist and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But it's a great way for me to develop standard operating procedures or SOPs for my team for anything that I needed to delegate. And so I said, well, I've got this Process Street account that I use for SOPs for all my VAs. Why the hell haven't I created an SOP for myself, right? Because again, a lot of the stuff that I've learned over the years, like I haven't delegated, or I've only delegated bits and pieces of it out. So a lot of the stuff, like on-page stuff, I still do myself. I run a lean operation. It's just me and a few full-time contract employees or virtual assistants. So I still do a lot of stuff myself. It's because I enjoy doing it. Okay. So when I started onboarding a bunch of new clients, as well as more lead generation, service providers for my lead gen to buy leads from me, essentially. And then I needed to start. I needed a repeatable process, and so I started to develop this checklist in Process Street. Okay. But what's interesting is in June, in the middle of June, there was an algorithm update in Google, and I had dozens of my own lead generation assets just tank in rankings. They weren't suspended, but they dropped from like an average position of, like I was in about 90% of my assets were in the Maps 3-pack, and then around the middle of June, between the middle of June and the end of June, all of them tanked, and they went to my average ranking position was about 15, right? So we went from the 3-pack to the average ranking position of about 15, because it ranged between average position of 10 and 12. So like I said, all in all, it came out to be about 15. And so my lead generation revenue like dried up almost overnight. In about a 2-week period, it completely disintegrated. And so I started scrambling to figure out what I could do to recover those GMB assets to get them to rank again. And that's really where I took my checklist and kind of basically, pump steroids into it, right? Like, in other words, I took what was just kind of a crude checklist and really developed it out after spending months of testing various methods and figuring out which, and here's the thing, I think about this as a blessing in disguise, guys, because even though it was painful to lose all that revenue, it gave me the opportunity. It presented the opportunity to have dozens of Google My Business profiles to test various SEO tactics and methods on, right? And to figure out which moved the needle. And so I was able to test a lot of different things in isolation and monitor how much movement I could get from the GMBs from, specific methods that I would, or techniques that I would apply. And so I was able to take throughout dozens of GMBs and figure out which things moved the needle the most, and then started making combinations of these various tactics and seeing which one of those worked. And so over the course of several months, I was able to recover about 80% of the GMBs back into the 3-pack. They're all producing well again now. And that's really where this GMB process checklist has come from, right? That's how it came to be what it is today, is because it's the essentially it's the Reader's Digest of all the different things that I put together or tested, and now it's really boiled down or condensed down into what I know moves the needle the most and does it consistently across every single location that I've applied it to. And so when I say a GMB process checklist, that checklist for ranking in 90 days, I've used this now for about 20 different locations, this checklist, and I've been able to rank within 90 days into the Maps 3-pack as long as I apply everything in this checklist, even in the most competitive areas, I've been able to get results. So with that, I just want to make a caveat here, is that if you're not in an uber competitive area or a market, and remember, even markets vary in competitiveness by location. So if you're not in a very competitive market, or maybe you're in a competitive market, but in a specific location that you're going to apply this to isn't very competitive, then you don't need to apply everything in here, except for what I'm going to show you guys in the checklist in just a moment. The on-page factors and what I call GMB post silos, you should implement 100% of those 3 modules, the first 3 modules in the checklist. But the off-page stuff is where you don't have to come out, you don't have to clean out your whole arsenal all at one time. You can only apply bits and pieces of that, and I'll get to that, like link building, for example. We'll get to that when we get into the checklist. But what I'm saying is, if you're not in an uber competitive area or market or a combination of the two, then you don't need to apply 100% of everything in this checklist to get results. Just start working your way systematically, right, methodically through the checklist, and you'll start to see movement. And when you get your desired results, stop. Like, you want to maintain your ranking, but you can do that without, again, you always want to leave some ammo in reserve, right? And so that's what I want to say, because I know that the checklist, when you look at everything, it's like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. But I want to be real clear. I've only had to apply absolutely everything in the checklist in uber competitive areas. For a lot of the stuff that I do, once I get the first 3 modules done, then I just start working my way through the link building modules, And at some point I will have results, and I can then back off and then just work on maintaining. And that way it leaves me some ammo in reserves for in the event that my rankings start to slip, I'll have lots left that I can apply, or I can use those like over time to just maintain top ranking, if that makes sense. Okay. So with that said, guys, as I promised, go to gmbprocess.com/MPT for mass page tools, and you can get the checklist. It's behind an opt-in, but there's nothing to pay for. Just opt in, and once you go to get redirected to the thank you page, there's a big red button right at the top of the page. It'll give you access to the Process Street template, and I'm going to just discuss that very briefly, and then we're going to get back over here. I just want to show you guys, this is what the Process Street template looks like. I'm going to zoom in on this, guys, so it's a little bit bigger. In order, and I've got a video right here at the top that tells you how to best use this kind of template, which is also a checklist, but you'll notice like you cannot check off any of these boxes as I'm clicking on them, because this is the template itself. So you're going to get access to the template. What I would recommend you do, and I'll just open up Firefox real quick and show you guys, this is not an affiliate promotion for Process Street. I just found it to be really useful. If you go to pricing, you'll see that you can actually run checklists from my template with a free account. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by run a checklist from the template. But this, as I mentioned before, this is a checklist that I apply to every location that I'm optimizing for, whether it's a client or my own my own lead generation assets. Okay, so what I mean by that is if I click on run, so again, you should be able to run up to 5 workflows or checklists with a free account, so that you don't need to spend any money. I also recommend that if you, you know what, I must be on a grandfathered plan, because my monthly pro account is only $15 per month, so I must be on an older account. Now it's $30 a month. I can tell you right now, though, guys. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It pays to act early. That's what I always say with some of these plans. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Daryl. Just so you guys know, I'm in the process of actually converting these Process Street templates into Flowster. Flowster.com is another app similar to this that I happened to snag a lifetime deal on last week, and it has some other functionality that Process Street does not. So eventually I'll have that, and you can be a guest on those Flowster workflows as well. So eventually, when I get this updated, we'll make notice for everybody to get the updated version on Flowster. But anyway, all I'm saying is this is very, very powerful, guys, especially if you're going to be delegating work to VAs, which I recommend you do so you can scale your business. And it's worth it, right? It's going to save you a ton of time. So let me just show you what I mean by this real quick. If I wanted to run a checklist for a location, so let's just say, we're just going to say demo location. That's what I do, is click run, and then I say run workflow. And what happens is this creates now a checklist version of this template. And what I like about this is that I can, obviously I would name this after the specific, location, or, the company name plus location, for example, or whatever, for whatever GMB that I was going to be optimizing, again, whether it's mine or client, whatever. And then what's great about this is I can start going through here and completing each one of the items on the checklist one at a time. And I can walk away at any point, right? And return to it, and I can pick right back up where I left off. So there's never any guesswork. And that's what I was saying before when I was doing this all 100%, on my own, and it was stuff that was in my head. It was real easy to forget to do stuff, or to bypass, to overlook things, to take shortcuts, just forget to do things. And so, it's hard to get reliable and repeatable results when you work that way. And so having this checklist was originally for me and me alone. But then I realized what the value of it was, and that's why we started making it available to members of our audience and some of our colleagues, such as Daryl's group. So
awesome.
Right. So there you go. That is, and what's great about this, guys, like I said, you can delegate these to teammates or VAs and that sort of thing. All right. So we'll get back over to that in just a minute. We're going to cover these main points today. Overview, on page. These are the 3 modules that should be 100% completed for every location that you're optimizing. And then the off-page stuff, where we talk about tier 1 and tier 2 link building, this is more or less like what you do once all the on-page stuff is done to start getting the results that you need or that you desire. And then, like I said, you can back off of this once you've achieved the results. You don't have to complete everything here unless you're in an uber competitive area, in which case you are likely going to need to do everything that is in here. But that way you'll have stuff left in reserve, okay? Okay, so on page, we're talking about optimize the profile info. And guys, I got a couple of newer GMBs that I've set up recently that I have not gone through the entire checklist for, but I like to use those as kind of training opportunities. That way, in case they get negative SEO, it's not a big deal. So I've got a couple that I'm going to show you guys today that I've completed much of, things that I want to show you today on. And that way you have some real live examples to go by, okay? We're going to try to run through some of this stuff really quickly, guys. I'm assuming if you guys are members of Daryl's group that you have a pretty good understanding of on-page SEO, like the standard stuff. So, GMB is no different. With the Google My Business profile, the important point to remember is to optimize your profile to 100% complete, to get it 100% complete. Leave no stone unturned, in other words, because Google rewards those businesses that use their tools to the fullest. And think about why Google My Business is so powerful, guys, because I don't know, I don't do much on Facebook other than, a chat in our groups and stuff. I don't like Facebook. I never have. So I don't do PPC or, paid advertising with Facebook, none of that. But I do know enough about Facebook to know that because we run a couple groups of our own and all that, is that if you're posting in your groups or from your page and you don't have any external links, they get a hell of a lot more reach. As soon as you include an external link in one of your posts, whether it's in a group post or a page post or whatever, it gets throttled in how many people get to see it. Very, very few, like a fraction of the people will see it if you put an external link in there. Why is that? Well, it's because Facebook doesn't want people clicking off of their platform. If they click an external link, it takes them off of their platform, which means they can't serve any more ads, which means they're not making any more revenue. So, so what I'm saying is Google finally caught on to this with Google My Business, and that's truly what I believe they did, and why they started implementing all these free tools in the Google My Business platform that they've given us, such as a Google My Business website builder, right? Such as messaging capabilities, call tracking, everything that they can keep in the Google ecosystem, so that, because think about it, guys, what has Google always been since its inception? It has been a search engine that leads to a search engine's results page, which is nothing other than an index of external URLs, right? So Google serves as an entry point to be taken off of Google onto somebody else's external website. And so Google got smart, and I mean, of course, Google Ads, they've been doing that forever, and that's where Google gets, what is it, like 90% of their 92% or something of their revenue? It might even be higher. It's ridiculous. Like, that's where they make all their money. But they got smart and they started following Facebook and realized that with the Google My Business platform, they can keep Google users in their ecosystem to where they never have to click off of Google. And so the Google My Business platform has given us all these different kinds of tools that will keep Google users in the Google ecosystem, so that so we as business owners or Google My Business users can utilize that or take advantage or exploit that by optimizing the profile to 100% of its capacity, as well as using all of the various tools that are available in Google My Business. And Google rewards people that do, or businesses that do, by giving them higher search rankings and more leads, ultimately more leads. All right, so I want to make that real clear, guys, because again, that by using all of the tools that are available, it keeps people in that Google ecosystem and likely to not click off of Google and go off to an external website, which means Google will ultimately make more revenue from those users as well. Okay, so starting with on page, it's really important to optimize the profile as much as possible. GMB categories, I'm, like I said, I work in one specific industry, well, primarily anyway, and because of that, I'm very familiar with the categories that are most appropriate. But there's a couple of tools that you can use. The one that I've been using most recently is called GMB Spy. It's a free Chrome extension, which you can see up here. And I'll just demonstrate that real quick. If we were to come over here and click on, let's just do a generic search for, I don't know, say tree service Richmond, VA. I'm in Virginia, so I often demonstrate stuff with Richmond, or excuse me, with stuff in Virginia. And so if we can see, and you know what, I don't have that extension over there. That's okay. Let's do it up here instead. Sorry, let me do it where I have the extension. What's important here, guys, first of all, always make sure that you have the most appropriate category as your primary category. Then you can add secondary categories. I've seen a lot of people try to stuff categories in that aren't truly relevant because they think that they're going to get some sort of benefit from that. Don't do that. Just figure out what are the appropriate categories. If you don't know for whatever industry you're working in, then that's what I'm about to demonstrate now, is how to identify what the most appropriate categories are based upon the top ranked search results in Google Maps for your target industry. All right. And so the GMB Spy, Chrome, which is a Chrome extension, and let me zoom in on this a little bit too. It's free, and it'll make it easier for you to identify those. So I just did a tree service Richmond, VA. I'm going to click into the maps, and I'm just going to click on the first one here, Central Virginia Tree Service Richmond. And once I click on that listing, it pulls up essentially the map, the knowledge panel inside of maps. Then if I click on this, it's going to show right there my categories: tree service, contractor, and service establishment. And I can tell you right now, two of these are wrong. Well, contractor, I guess, is, you know, somewhat appropriate, but service establishment is wrong. Okay, that's an inappropriate category. I'm not here to teach you guys on what appropriate categories are or are not. I just want to show you what, you know, one way to identify which the best category is for your target industry or the location that you're optimizing for. Okay, so what I would do is, you know, you can copy those to clipboard. Something else that you can do, I do not have a template for this, I'm sorry guys, but you can create kind of on a spreadsheet, Excel or Google Sheet, kind of a heat map, right? You could put this company's name in row 1, this row 2, so on and so forth down, and then in column A, you could put tree service, right, as primary, and then secondary columns would be B and C, contractor, service, establishment. And then you do that for your top 10 results, right? So that now you have a heat map essentially that you've created inside a spreadsheet that will show you what the primary categories are, what all the secondary categories are, and the top 10 ranked results. And then you can see which ones are the highest frequency so that you can mimic that, right? And that's all I'm trying to get at, is I like to use Google's own data of what is the top ranked anything for me to determine what I need to be doing so that I can meet and exceed what they are doing, right? Does that make sense? So again, just very quickly, if I click into GMB and tree services and I click GMB Chrome extension again, I'm not sure why that one did not come through. I might have to refresh. And I don't know if that actually worked, but we'll try it again. That one's not working for some reason. Let's try True Timber. That one's just tree service. So it's interesting. It's like Cambium Tree Services does not have a category, which is really weird. But whatever. Okay, so we'll look at D. Valter or whatever his name is. We'll take a look at that one, tree service and service establishment. And see, now that's interesting because I know that's an inappropriate category. But you know, it's been present in as a secondary category in 2 of the top 4, which is interesting. So it might be something that I might want to include if I was optimizing a location for Richmond. These are the 2 that I always use, just so you know: tree service and arborist and tree surgeon. Those are the most appropriate for the business that I'm in. So that's what I always go with. But that's not what I meant to click. So let me back up. But anyways, guys, hopefully you understand what I'm talking about. If I click into here and we take a look at this again, we're going to see tree service. So you can see that it's clear that tree service should be the primary category for all of these. And that makes sense. We're talking about a tree service company, right? But what are the secondary categories? And interestingly, this one is not a very good representation of arborist and tree surgeon. Should be the second best, or the top of the secondary categories, excuse me. But some of the other things that they've added in here I don't think are appropriate. But if I was optimizing for Richmond, I might want to include, depending on what the rest of the top 10 have, if service establishment was one of the secondary categories that was most frequent in the top 10, then I might actually include that as a secondary category, even though I know that to be incorrect. Do you guys understand that? Again, it just comes back to trying to meet and exceed what the top competitors are doing. Okay, so let's move on. All right. So that's one of the things, guys, that is one of the most important things. I've seen way too many potential clients when I'm prospecting that have the have just miscategorized primary categories. And that is one of the main reasons why they have trouble ranking. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons too, but if you're like, even if you have all the rest of your on-page stuff done right, if your categories are wrong, you're not going to rank well. Okay. So that is one of the most important things, period. And that's why it's first on the list. Number 2 is address or service area business. Should you display the street address? Okay. In my industry, I do strictly tree service stuff, which are supposed to be service area businesses. In case somebody isn't aware, what is the difference? Well, there's storefront businesses and service area businesses. Storefront businesses are where the customer comes to the business location. Service area businesses is when the business goes to the customer's location. So obviously contractors, plumbers, tree service contractors, roofers, HVAC, like all that kind of home services industries, they're all going to be service area businesses. Now, according to something that would be a storefront business would obviously be like retail stores, dentist's office, accountants, a lot of accountants, things like that. So you guys understand the difference between a storefront business and a service area business. As per Google's terms of service, a service area business is not supposed to display their street address. They're supposed to unpublish or clear their street address after they verified their listing. If it's a brand new listing, you verify it via postcard. And once you've verified the listing, you're supposed to go in and clear the street address so that it's not displayed. And again, that's as per Google's terms of use. However, that is not followed by the vast majority of companies out there, service area businesses. And so should you display your street address or not? Never display your street address if it's a spammed Google My Business listing, which means if you're using a PO box or a virtual street address, or excuse me, a virtual mailbox from the various like UPS stores or Staples office centers, things like that, do not display your street address, period, because that's a very good way to get them reported by your competitors, by real businesses that are competitors, and they will be terminated. So don't ever display your street address if it's a spammed listing or a listing at a virtual mailbox or PO box or something like that. It has to be a valid business address. And when I say that, again, there's so many different rabbit holes we could go down, guys, but in the tree service industry, like 90% of them, and that's not a super accurate number, but in my experience over the last 10 years of working with tree service contractors, about 90% of them run their businesses from a residential address, from their home usually. And so a valid business address for tree service contractors is a residential home address, although even in Google's terms of service, it states specifically it's supposed to be a business location, like a commercial building, because it's the industry norm for tree service contractors to be run out of their businesses to be run out of their home. It's okay to have a residential address as the business address. Okay. So when I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, can I give you a little anecdote? We were looking to get something from a gun shop. It was just basically like a stun gun for our stepdaughter who was going to New York City, to just for self-defense. And we put it into maps and we said, find this gun shop. Went, followed the maps, doing all of a sudden we're in this residential neighborhood and then somebody's house is there. And we're like, do we go to their front door and ask them if they've got some guns for us? So it's very awkward. And when people, when you get down to the real purpose of maps, it's really to, get people to your place when they're in their car or on their mobile or when they're talking to their Google Home or whatever. So if you abuse that in a way, you're kind of hurting yourself, because we didn't go back to that business because we thought it was kind of shady that they put some kind of residential address as, as their business name. So yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense for you to be transparent with your audience, your customers. And I think that's a good rule that Google has actually on that.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing, because I have a lot of people that come into our group and mention that they want to do lead gen, and then I say, okay, yeah, that's great. What industry have you chosen? And somebody will say dentist. I mean, that hasn't been done to death. But somebody says dentist, say, well, how are you going to run a lead gen business for dentists when you're going to register a fake GMB that people are going to click driving directions to, and when they get there, there's no dentist office there. Like, it doesn't
Right.
make sense. You can't do that. If you're going to run a lead gen business and you're going to use Google My Business, then you need to use service area businesses only. That's the only type that you can target. Otherwise, your GMBs will get suspended because people are going to report them and complain that
Right.
they ask directions to go to some place that isn't really a business location. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you got to be real careful about that. But when I say, should you display the street address, if we go back to just this example here again, okay, guys, like I mentioned before, you're not supposed to, for service area businesses, display your address. But take a look at this, okay? So position number 1, no street address displayed. 2, no street address displayed. 3, there is. 4, there isn't. 5, there is. 6, there is. 7, there isn't. 8, there is. 9, there isn't. 10, there is. Okay, so top 10 results. Out of the top 10 results, it looks like, I don't know, about half of them, I didn't keep count in my head while I was going down, but it looks like about half of them display their street address. Half of them do not. If we were to look at another similar search query, let's just, let me show you another one. What I'm always looking for is if it's 60% or more that are displaying their street address for a service area business, then I try to, if possible, I display the street address. Again, if it's a lead gen asset, spammed listing, or using a virtual mailbox type service, do not display it, period. End of story. Doesn't matter whether the 60% or more of the top are showing your address or not. Don't do it because you'll get your listing suspended, so just don't do it. But if you're doing this for clients and they have an actual valid business address, which could be their home, in this case, for tree service contractors, it could be their home, then you need to have that discussion with your client and ask them, like, hey, here's the thing that, the top ranked competitors are showing their street address. You have that option. It's per Google's terms of service that you're not supposed to, but it hasn't been an issue for the last several years, and your top ranked competitors are displaying their address. So Mr. Prospect or Ms. Customer, whatever you talk, Ms. Business Owner, whatever, here's your options. You can display your street address if you want to. If you're worried about having your home address, displayed in maps, then just let's not display it. Also be aware that if we do choose, because it does help, it will give us a little bit of a boost because the top ranked competitors are showing their address. If you're okay with displaying your address, then also be aware that potentially it could be an issue at some point because Google says we're not supposed to do it. However, I recommend that we do. And so I'm just real open and honest about that with my clients, guys, because remember, they're coming to me as to get them and to provide them an advantage in Google. And so I'm going to say, like, okay, here's some of the things I can do. Here's some of the risks involved. What do you think? And then I allow them to make the decision. And then I just go with whatever they decide, right? They might ask me for some recommendations, in which case I give it to them. But I just want to point that out. So I know that this one right here, Tree Service, Baltimore, Maryland, take a look at this. Number 1, address is shown. 2, address is shown. Looks like 4 or 5. Then the next one, it looks like the SERPs have shifted a little bit since the last time I did this. So actually, in this case, in Baltimore, the top 10, the last time I did this presentation, actually Baltimore was the one that I would have displayed the address on. So it does change, guys, apparently. But if you take a look at this, you'll see that it looks like the top 2, and this one actually might be showing it. It just might be truncated because I've got it. So anyways, just so I don't spend too much time on this, guys, if we take a look, shit, that's not what I wanted to do. Click on that and we'll see. Okay, so it does show their address. So what I'm saying is just go look at the top 10. If 6 or more of them have the address, then I tend to try to put the address if it's a valid location. Okay, you all understand that? If it's 5 or less that are showing their address, then I tend not to show the address. And that's just, like I said, I saw that this does have a little bit of a benefit when if you can display the address if the competitors are displaying it. Okay. So for the website URL and the GMB profile, and I'll show you the info tab in just a moment, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But Google My Business gives you a free website builder. It's very limited in what you can do with it, but again, it's a free website builder in Google, so use it, guys. And so for the primary website URL as part of the profile information, I recommend, if you can, using the GMB website URL as the primary website. And then for a lot of, and not every industry has this, but for most of the industries that I've worked in, which is more than just tree service contractors, I've got, you know, clients in other industries, but the vast majority of what I do is tree service stuff. They will give you an appointment URL field. And I recommend, if you are able to, and if the client is okay with it, that you put their primary website URL in the appointment URL field, and you use the GMB website URL, which is a .business.site. So you get a subdomain of your choosing, then .business.site, and that becomes what's known as your Google My Business or GMB website. And I recommend, and I'm going to show you exactly why in just a moment, that you put the GMB website URL as the primary website and the location landing page, so essentially the client's self-hosted website, in the appointment URL field. And the reason why is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What a nugget that is, my friend. I love this. A do follow link from Google. Are you guys watching this?
Yeah.
This is incredible. And it's just shifting things around with your thinking. Google loves Google, right? And Google GMB websites should go somewhere, but you could always put in your header how to create an appointment on every page of your website. And you can throw that link in there, and that's sweet. I love that advice. I love it.
And let me show you why, guys, because here's an example. I'm going to zoom in on all this too. Okay, so here's an example of one of the locations that I recently set up as part of my directory site, and my directory, or my agency, is called Tree Care HQ. And so I started building local assets with that brand, using that brand. So this is one of those, and I've got two that I'm going to be kind of going back and forth through today. So this is one that's a little bit of a newer location. And if you take a look, in fact, let's just go over here real quick, and I'm just going to do a brand search for this. I'll show you what I mean. So this is just a rural town in Virginia, about 40 miles south of where I'm at. But so if you take a look at this, you'll see that under the website button right there, I know you probably can't see it down in the bottom left corner, but if I click through, you'll see that that takes me to the Tree Care HQ Ruckersville GMB website. Okay, so that's what we're looking at here. Okay, so that's the primary website button. But then right there under appointments, if you click through to that, you'll see that that goes to a location landing page, right? So this is just a what's called swipe pages landing page. They load incredibly fast, but this is not a self-hosted WordPress site. I'm actually in the process of building a local .treecarehq.com site that I'll have self-hosted location landing pages on WordPress for each one of my GMB locations for this particular brand. And then I'm going to be adding Magic Page to that, Magic Page plugin, to build out you know, the pages, the magic, you know, location pages that are surrounding each one of these GMBs. So I'm in the process of doing that. I have not done much with that yet, guys. So what we're looking at right now is just the excuse me, Tree Care HQ. It's just the landing page that I have associated with that right now. This is a Magic Page template. I have not done anything with this yet, which is why it looks just like it does in the template section. But this is eventually, it will be local.treecarehq.com/Ruckersville-VA, and that will be the location landing page for this location at that time. But for now, again, don't worry about that. All I'm saying is the reason why you want to do that, guys, is the website URL is the GMB website, and then the appointment URL is the location landing page. All that matters is that you have an ability on that page for somebody to contact you, right? So in other words, it could be a tap to call button, and have a form there, right? Have a contact, or in my case, it's an estimate request form, which many of you would probably recognize this as a lead simplify form, Mike Martin's lead simplify form. But you know, any sort of form will do, because essentially that's it passes as a make appointment type of URL because it has a contact form on it, plus, you know, tap to call buttons and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's all that matters. That's what Daryl was saying. You can put a way to contact them as across the site header if you're using the root domain as the website URL as opposed to just a separate location landing page. It's fine. Just make sure that on that root domain, the homepage, essentially, that you have, you know, and almost all sites do for local businesses now, a contact form, preferably above the fold, as well as, you know, like tap to call buttons and everything else for mobile. Okay, so most of you, that's pretty standard. But here's why. Because that link right there, guys, is a do follow link from Google. Does that make sense? And this appears on every page of the GMB website. And people say, well, I didn't know it has pages. Well, it does when you post GMB posts. This is a GMB post. And if we click through to the post, you'll see that make appointment URL, and that's the anchor text, by the way. You cannot manipulate the anchor text, but it's okay because you can do that with your tier 1 and tier 2 link building. Like I consider this a tier 1 link. Well, actually, I actually consider this a money site asset, the GMB website itself, but you can actually accomplish, you know, how you manipulate anchor text from using link building. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit further when we get into the link building stuff. All I want to make, the point that I'm trying to make here is that is a do follow link that is present on every page within this site, which means inner page as a post. This is a GMB post, but this is actually acting as an inner page of the website, if you see that up there, okay? And also the button URLs, the CTA button URLs, and that's what they call these, there's call to action buttons. There's 2 of them that I use most often, which is book and learn more. And both of those are do follow links as well. And so using GMB posts as a way to push, you know, to build links from a Google domain over to your, you know, assets, your tier 1 branded assets, which includes your money site, which includes your, you know, primary social media properties, you know, any sort of your, you know, branded assets out there, is a great way to do it, because Google loves Google, and you can build what's called, you know, GMB post silos and things like that. And then you can smash your GMB post with links and push power through the CTA button to your target URL, whatever you choose it to be. Again, you cannot manipulate this anchor text other than either selecting from learn more or book. There are some other CTA action buttons that you can select, or call to action buttons, excuse me, that you can select, like a call button, for example, which is great if you just want to generate a lead from a post. Then it's just a tap to call button. But for SEO purposes, which is what we're talking about right now, learn more and book are the 2 buttons that I use, and those are the only anchor text that you can select. But there's a very specific process for, you know, what I call GMB post silos, and there's a couple different like formats of post silos, which we'll cover in a little bit, so that you can decide on how you want to push power and where you want it to push power and that sort of thing. So just so you, again, guys, just so you understand, this is very, very powerful, because this is a do follow link. The CTA buttons within the GMB websites, the GMB posts themselves are do follows. Now, a link within the text, the post body of a GMB post will be a clickable link, but you can, it has to be, it's just a URL anchor, right? So a naked URL essentially, and it's a no follow link. So it's still important to use to build links with, or to place links within the post body of the GMB posts. And again, I'm getting a little bit ahead, but I'll show you just another example of this real quick. This is another asset that I'd set up, and this more for training purposes, but you'll see I do not have the make appointment URL here, because at the time that I set this up, I did not have a location landing page for this. And since I'm in the process of actually starting to build out the local.treecarehq.com WordPress site that I'll eventually add Magic Page to, I just left this one alone. So that's why I've got 2 different examples that I'm showing you today, because this one has the make appointment URL, this one does not, okay? So because I don't have a location landing page associated with this project just yet, okay? But what I want to get at here is, for example, if we were to click into this post, you'll see right there is a link. It's an external link, and it's a naked URL, because you cannot add anchor text to these URLs. But that is a no follow link, okay? It's still important to use these, and again, we'll talk about this when we get into post silos, which is module 3, but it's important to use those, and I'll explain why when we get to there. But just be aware that the learn more button is a do follow link, the make appointment URL is a button at the site header is also a do follow link, okay, which will be present on every page, including the inner pages for the posts, okay? All right, excuse me, that was not what I wanted to do. Okay, so let's get back over here, and we're going to try to move forward a little bit quicker, guys. Services, you want to add services and service descriptions. I'm going to give you an example here of one that's been well done. So this is back in the TreeCareHQ Roanoke location. If we go into services, guys, here's the thing. When you go to optimize or set up your profile for the first time, Google is going to suggest, or there's a section in the info tab, let me show you, down here, which is called services. right? And so if you wanted to click in and edit the services, well, it's taking me over there now, but when you first set it up, it's going to give you just the ability to, well, okay, let me back up a little bit. When you first set up your Google My Business profile, if you have added a external landing page or external website as the website URL, Google will go out and actually read that, and it will crawl that page, and then it will suggest services to you, right? It's just, it finds text on your site, and it determines, okay, and that those are relevant, and so it will suggest. And what's interesting is you might not see that when you first set up the GMB profile, but if you come back to it like a week later after it's been verified, that's when you'll see that. You'll see that it'll be an orange text, and it will give you suggested services down here, and it will basically give you the option to approve them or to edit them or review them or whatever. And it's interesting because it goes and actually reads your web page to determine and identify what it thinks are appropriate services to add here. So that's all well and good. Sometimes it finds stuff that's inappropriate or non-relevant, so just delete those. But the point that I'm trying to make here is to, first of all, make sure that you have the services listed that are appropriate that you want to optimize for. But then from there, once they've been added to the profile, most people are unaware of this, and I could probably show this to you with Ruckersville because I don't think I've optimized these yet. Let me take a look and see. Yeah, okay. So this is what most people stop at right here. Okay, you see how, and this is good that I didn't realize that this is actually a good opportunity to show you that this is an unoptimized services list. This is an optimized services list. See the difference? You guys see the difference here between this, which is where most people stop. I mean, even most SEOs I know stop at just adding services. But you can go in and actually, and I'll show you, if I click in the stump removal, it gives me the ability to add a price, which I don't because it's the industry I'm in, it's always estimate based. But you can add up to 300 characters. So you can flesh out and optimize for each one of your services. And again, even SEOs, guys, like most people I know doing GMB stuff don't ever optimize these services. Why not? That's something else that, again, you do that and Google will reward you by showing your listing more often.
May I ask a quick question? Where
Yes.
does that information show up on the front end for this Roanoke site?
It does on mobile.
Oh, okay.
So on desktop, you won't see those. But so for example, if we go take again, let's just go look at. So if you see here, there's not services listed in the knowledge panel. And even if we click through to the map, unless they've changed something recently, you're not going to see that down here. You see that? It's got reviews, and then underneath that, it goes to web results. But if you take a look at that same location on a mobile device, you're going to see it's a scrolling menu at the top that you can swipe to the left or the right, and you can find the services. And when you tap services, then it will expand and it will show you these with the descriptions. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at the trust flow for business.site, which is that Google property. The trust flow is a 50, citation flow is a 58, and it's just getting started because this is kind of a new feature from Google. And there's over almost like 1 billion majestic links going into that URL. I mean, why wouldn't you use that? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and to get back to that, Daryl, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I've had people ask me about is, well, what if the client they want their main website URL as the primary website URL? Well, then just do that. I mean, just, again, here's the thing. In my industry, tree service contractors, like the vast majority of them, they don't care. They really don't even care about their website other than they know that they generate leads. That's all they care about is leads. So the vast majority of them don't care. Even if they had an expensive website built, they don't care as long as the Google profile is producing leads, whether the GMB web they're after, which is leads, and I can generate more leads if I rank them higher, and it's easier to rank them higher if I put the GMB website URL as the primary website and then get the do follow link through the appointment URL back to their money site, because that helps to rank organically too. Like, if that makes sense, guys. So
absolutely. That's your 30% for Google My Business SERP, and the 40% from natural getting boosted. So why wouldn't you do it? It's like
that's right. And
Well,
but
once
again,
you're on-
if a client says, look, I want my primary, I want my website as website in the website URL field, so that's the actual button in the knowledge panel, right? So we come back here, and that would be this, button here, or if we back up, that would be this button here. If that's what they want, then so be it. You can still get results without doing this, guys, but you get a hell of a bonus, like a boost, by being able to squeeze a do follow link from these profiles through that appointment URL field, right? But what just so you're aware, like I said, don't allow that to handicap you. What I'm saying is, because remember, all of the buttons that you add in your GMB posts can be do follow. If you use the learn more or the book button, those are do follow links as well. And when you have multiple posts on the home page, so if we click down here, you'll see each one of these are do follow links too. And so if you build a bunch of links to the root domain, or I should say the subdomain, your subdomain on the .business.site, you can power this up anyway, and you can push power through these button URLs. And then again, when I show you guys what I do with GMB post silos, you can also target specific posts and post silos and accrue or pool, right? Or pool link equity into those silos and push what I call a push silo, is all of that link equity exits through one CTA button at the top of the silo. So again, if you are unable to add the appointment URL as the primary website or the location landing page because your client doesn't want it, then that's okay. You can still accomplish what I'm trying to share with you by doing it through posts. It's just going to take a little bit more manual work, but that's okay. You can still do it. Okay.
Love it.
All right. We need to move on. So GMB website, this is the power center of Google My Business. Entity SEO tuned content. You guys are probably familiar with Page Rewriter. That's a great tool. It helps you to get, basically find, and that's Mike Martin's tool, but it helps you to find, already ranked content and rephrase it using AI writing assistant, essentially GPT-3, and it will rephrase it and keep most of the named entities intact in the content. And then you can obviously swap out location terms to make them appropriate for your location and use that again. There's a number of tools out there that will do something similar. Another one out there is called quillbot.com, quill, like Q-U-I-L-L bot.com. It's a great rephrasing tool as well. It doesn't pull in SERP data like Page Rewriter does, though, which is why I think Page Rewriter is a little bit more efficient. There's also tools like Jarvis, Jarvis.ai. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. A lot of those kind of like AI. And I think, I know Daryl uses, Mentorprise.
Yeah.
Mentorprise would be another tool that you could use to do stuff like this.
Inside our stack, some of our users have Enterprise, which they have Siphon AI, which is our product. That's
Okay.
a rewriting tool. It's similar to a summarization and rewriter. But there's a lot of tools out there for sure.
Okay. Yeah. And so I'm sorry, Daryl. Yes, Siphon IA. What I would have included that in this for yours as well had I known. I'm not using your Siphon AI, so I apologize for that. Okay, so the important point to remember is to tune to achieve a higher optimization score than your competitor money sites. So, I use these various tools. I mean, I've got subscriptions to so many freaking tools, it's ridiculous, but we really use 7 or 8 tools to tune content. I don't recommend everybody do that unless you have the budget to do it and the desire to do it. But, any one of these tools will work for tuning content to outrank your competitors. Surfer SEO is probably the most known. Outranking.io is a little bit newer. I actually like this one probably better than Surfer SEO. Inlinks.net is another one for more advanced people that know a lot, but like that's a little bit more of an advanced tool, but it's also a great tool. So I'd encourage you guys to check those out. The important part to remember here, guys, is I see way too often, even again, SEOs that optimize Google My Business profiles, and they do the bare minimum on a GMB website to get results. Don't do that. Like I found, if you put a ton of content in the GMB, well-tuned content, then you're going to have an advantage, right? And so again, if you were to just take a look at it, the examples that I've got here, I've got substantial content on these GMB website pages. Now we cannot manipulate the SEO elements of these pages like you can on WordPress or a page builder or anything like that. What do I mean by that? Meaning like these all look like headings, but really they're just bolded text because we are unable to add heading tags to GMB websites. We cannot add images in text, right? We can add images, which come down here in the photos section, but we cannot add images in text. We cannot add H tags. We can add links but they're all no follow. So for example, if I were to take this page, doesn't matter guys, no follow links are still valuable. Don't let anybody tell you different. They are absolutely still valuable. But let me make sure it's enabled. I do have my no follow highlighter enabled here, and you'll see all of those are no followed in the post body. But here's, yes, so the post body of the GMB website, they're all no followed. But here's what I want you guys to understand. This, by linking from the GMB website in the post body contextually over to your other branded tier 1 assets, you are creating the association between those digital profiles, those assets on other platforms and your Google My Business website, right? Do you understand? You're making the relationship, you're showing Google the association between those assets. So you want to link to those from here, right? You can link with branded terms, you can link with keywords, you can link with, and this one, like I said, I don't have any branded assets really built for this, or at least the bare minimum. But if we were to take a look at this one, for example, I think I've got more built out through here, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, yeah. So you'll see how I've got keywords here now linking to various assets as well. And when I say branded assets, guys, this means like, here's the YouTube channel for this location. Excuse me, let me shut that down. What is this one? This is the GMB CID map URL, right? So you guys understand the CID map URL is the URL that, if we copy that real quick and I put this in a notepad file, this is the best URL to build links to for SEO purposes. This is what I call the CID map URL. Let me zoom in on that, guys, just so you're aware. And we need to cover this too, so you guys are aware of this. Nobody builds links to these URLs except for SEOs. So just be aware of that. Why I tell you people that is because if all you ever do is build links to this URL, which is, it's important to do so, but if all you ever do is build links to this, it's going to give you an incredibly unnatural link profile for the Google map itself, because most bloggers and laymen, or civilians, as I like to call, like, non-SEOs are not going to ever link to the Google map with this map URL, because this is not readily available anywhere in Google Maps. But this is the map URL that you can push link equity into the map with. What do I mean by all of that? Okay, well, if we go visit this URL in Google, watch the address bar. Once the page fully loads, that URL, boom, right there, it just converted to this long, ugly URL. Okay, either one of these URLs is you can push link equity, page rank, into the map through either one of these URLs. But this one is super long and ugly, so we don't like to use that. And this actually tests, if you look at a redirect checker, like I like to use wheregoes.com, I'll show you what I mean. I know a lot of this is kind of technical SEO stuff, guys, but this is important because, like, I could give you just the, like, hey, do this, and that, but if you don't understand why, it won't make any sense to you. So I try to always explain why we do what we do. But if we take a look at the trace URL here, you're going to see that this shows there's no redirect. It's saying that it's giving me an HTML code of 200, which means test OK, and it's saying the trace is complete. There is no redirect. But we just witnessed with our very own eyes that it does actually redirect to this long, ugly map URL, right? Okay, so we're aware that this is, according to Google, this is a non-redirect, so we know that we can push page rank in here. However, nobody links to that except for SEOs. Most people that are going to link to a map, they're going to click this, the share button, and they're going to copy that link. And that's the link that they're going to be linking to. That's what looks like this, okay? So it is important when you're doing, link building, that occasionally, sometimes often, especially if you're using press releases and such, and we can talk about that when we get to link building a little bit, because press releases are an integral part of what I do for all the SEO work that I do. But it makes sense to link to the Google map with this sometimes. Even though it's no follow, you want that natural looking link profile. And by the way, and let me show you what I mean by no follow. If we take this back over to where it goes and we trace this one, see a huge difference here. This one redirects as a 302 redirect to the long ugly map URL. So that means it does not pass page rank. 302 URL redirects do not pass page rank. So essentially the link equity is killed right here. Does that make sense? So you can't push any like link equity, link juice, right, page rank into the map URL through this map share URL. But for a natural looking link profile, you want to have some links built to here. So one other thing I just real quick point on this too, guys, because when we're going to talk about GMB post silos in very shortly as well too. I'm going to try to, you know, speed this up a little bit, Daryl. I know there's a lot to cover, man. I hope that's all right with you.
It's okay. We're good. Great
right.
knowledge bombs. We love it.
So if we go back into this GMB post, guys, what I want to talk about here is if we take a look, in fact, let me back up for a minute. All right. I could zoom in, but I don't think that zooms in on the, no, it doesn't, on the address bar. So that's not going to help. All right. I'm just going to click through to this post. All right. So I'll put this in the notepad file. This is the post URL. This is as an inner page of the GMB website. All right. So let me just show you what I mean. Okay. So this is the post URL minus, I always get rid of the language code at the end. So the question mark HL equals EN for English. I just always get rid of that. So this is the actual GMB post URL for a GMB post. Okay. This is, again, just like I was talking about with the CID map URL up here, you can pass PageRank into the post this way. If you use the post share URL, which you would get from SERP or the knowledge panel or from Google Maps itself, then that share URL goes through multiple redirects, 302 redirects, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So if we come back over here to TreeCare HQ Roanoke, and we scroll down, and you'll see these posts right here, right? That's the post that I just clicked into a moment ago to give us this inner page URL right here. You see the image is the same, okay? So if I click on this here and it pulls up in SERP, right? So as a kind of like an overlay over top the search engine results page, the SERP, and I click on the share button right here, it's going to give me a short URL. If I click to copy, now it's on my clipboard. If we come paste it in here so you can see it, this is the redirect URL that redirects to this URL up here. Okay, you guys get that? But now let's go take a look at that and where it goes and watch and trace the route. Okay, you'll see what happens. Look at that. 302, 302, 301, 302. Then it finally gets to 200 and then ultimately redirects one more time to another 200. So you've lost any link equity by sharing that post URL using the share URL. And that goes for either the share URL from the SERP or from inside of Maps. Again, if we were to come back over here, we were to come down here where it says, you know, posts, that was this post right here. We click the share URL button right there. We copy that link. I don't even know if it's the same link. Take a look. It does not look like it is. No, see, this is even a different link. It's, again, it's going to go ultimately to the same location, which would be here. But the difference is if you take a look at how this displays, like if we were to look at this, open that final URL, it's going to show that as a SERP. And in fact, I don't know why I just did that, but let's do it back here. Let's do this one instead. Yeah, it's not letting me open that one. Maybe I could just copy it. Now, for whatever reason, it's not letting me copy it. But my point is that it just like what I was trying to say up here with these, you guys, if you're going to be building links to GMB posts, which is where you can really power things up, and I'll explain that in a little bit, it does make sense to also include a few links to some of these sort of versions of it. Probably, like a lot of you are probably aware, there's multiple versions of a YouTube URL, right? And it makes sense to build links to various versions of the YouTube URL, okay? So that's all important. And then also one other type of map, by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier, one other type of map URL that you could build links to that is pretty powerful is when you go to share, you go to embed a map, and you'll see this view larger map link right here. If we copy that link address, that is also another URL that can be built to for maps that will pass PageRank. Let me show you. That's a different URL. See that? It's a different URL too, but it goes to the same map, and you can pass PageRank into here too. And there's something else that I can't really cover here, guys. It's kind of mastermind stuff that I'm just not going to be able to cover here. It just wouldn't be fair to my mastermind members. But just kind of think about some of the stuff that you could do right there. Those are your Latin long coordinates for this map. Think about some of the ways you could manipulate that. I'm going to leave it kind of at that. Get your mind thinking. Okay. Think about some of the. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Daryl.
Mass pagers are looking at that right now. So.
Yep. Think about some of the things you could do with that right there. Right. So I just wanted to point out some of these various formats of these URLs, guys, because it's really important. All right. So my point with all of that was to show you that, you know, it's important that you start to make associations between your tier one entity assets and your GMB. You want to claim your footprint, not hide it. Like we're so used to as SEOs over the years, like trying to hide our footprint with everything we do, but we're in the semantic web. You want to claim your digital footprint, right? You want to make associations, links between all of your various branded assets so that Google starts to build a knowledge graph for your brand, right? Does that make sense? The bigger that you can grow that knowledge graph by adding nodes and associating them to the entity itself, the branded entity, that the bigger that knowledge graph gets, the more authority it gains. And that's really, really important. And that's where I see, again, a lot of people fall flat. So take a look. This is just another tier one branded asset. This is a Press Advantage organization page. Press Advantage is the service that I use for press releases. It's incredibly powerful. I know the developer of it. I've been a subscriber, member of Press Advantage since he launched it, and I think it was 2014. And he's actually developed a lot of the stuff in here, like all these iframe embeds and everything, specifically at our request. Semantic Mastery's request, because of all the SEO stuff that we do to it. So it's very, very important. And then again, here's another one. This is going to the ID page, which if you guys are familiar with local business schema, you know there is what's called an @ID field. That is, if you've ever done any research on what an @ID field is, it's supposed to be a URI that lists, so a universal resource indicator that lists all of the company or the entity's verifiable information, so you can manipulate that with an ID page. And so we always create @ID pages on an S3 Amazon bucket. So this is just a simple HTML page hosted on an Amazon S3 bucket, and we use that as an ID identifier essentially for any sort of local business schema. And then what we call this is an ID loop, or an ID page loop. And that's because what we do here is what's called iframe stacking, which is incredibly powerful, because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but iframes act as do follow links. They're called empty anchors as far as the way that like Google looks at them. They're considered empty anchors, but they act as do follow links even on no follow websites. So by stacking iframes, and what we do is we create kind of like this mirror in mirror, like that goes on for infinity type of, I'm sure you guys are aware when you look at two mirrors, like you stand in between two mirrors and you look in one of them, you see that kind of like mirror and mirror, and it keeps getting smaller and it goes on for infinity. That's what you can do when you stack iframes. And the bots, the Google bots, the spiders come in and they get stuck and they just go on forever inside here, and it helps to build authority, and ultimately it helps to rank. So that's really interesting in here. But as I was just talking about, like here's the GMB website, which is iframed into this page. You can see some of these are no follow, but most of them are do follow links. That's how I can start to manipulate anchor text on an ID page. This is just a quick hack on how you can get citations crawled. Remember, guys, I don't know if you're aware of this, if you do a lot of GMB stuff, but most citations do not get indexed. It doesn't matter whether they're indexed that much or not. What matters is that Google crawls them. Citations are notorious for not being crawled or being indexed. So one of the hacks is, because this is essentially a bot or a spider trap, this ID page, is to list your citations in your ID page. And there's various ways to do it. You can put them in a sidebar like this. You could put them in a public G sheet, so a Google sheet, and then publish the G sheet and then embed the G sheet into here. The whole point is the Google spiders come and crawl this page, and they kind of get stuck here, and they keep coming back to this page over and over and over again. And so they will crawl all of your citation URLs. You can no follow them so that you're not passing equity to those. You just want them to be crawled, if that makes sense. So this is just a hack to get your citations picked up a lot quicker. And so you can see here's one of the citations for that business. All right, does that make sense? That's something else that I figured out just by testing. But as I was saying, like here's the GMB website iframed, here's the GMB map, here is the Press Advantage organization page, which has a GMB map iframed into it, which has the Facebook page iframed into it, which has the GMB website iframed into it. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a 1x1 pixel right there that has an iframe of, guess what? This page right here. So again, if we go back over to Press Advantage and we scroll down right there, that little 1x1 pixel right there is the S3 ID page, the Amazon S3 bucket hosted ID page, which is this page here. Does that make sense? So you can see that, again, the bots come in and they crawl this page, and then they crawl down through the Press Advantage organization page, and then they crawl back through to the S3 page, back to here again, and then it starts the whole process over again. There's a YouTube video, and then what's this? This right here is the ID page iframed into itself. You guys get that? It's insane. One of my partners, former partners, Marco, he actually just he left Semantic Mastery just about a week ago. Well, anyway, he's got some tools and stuff that he's used to actually monitor the spiders, and he's seen the bots get stuck in here for like 48 minutes at a time. It's insane. So it works really, really good, guys. If you understand iframe stacking, I highly recommend that you use an ID page. It's very, very powerful. All right. So let's just very quickly, guys, I'm going to jump into the process, and we're going to come back to the entity assets, but I just want to make sure that everything gets covered here in the profile. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here kind of quickly, guys. We don't need to cover every one of these because it's pretty much laid out. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure that we, anything that I see here that needs to be covered. Daryl, do you see any questions come through that I need to answer?
Just a few. I've been answering them myself, but
Okay,
we're good. We're good.
Okay. Guys, photos is really important. Upload a logo, upload a cover image, which will also be the you can it's whatever cover image you create will by default become the cover image for the GMB website as well. And then upload a minimum of 5 geotagged photos with logo and text overlay. So that's really important. I don't know if you guys had kind of seen this when I was showing. I got so many pages open, but if we take a look at this image, you can see there's some it's hard to see, but there's some text overlay on this page. There's the logo right up here. I know it's hard to see, but right up there is the primary keyword, in this case, Tree Service Roanoke, VA. Then right here is the NAP, name, address, phone number, and then the link to the website, the primary website. And then underneath that, there is actually in that right there is the Google Maps share URL, the one that does not pass PageRank, because this is not an actual direct link. This is just so Google can read it, right? We as people might not be able to read this text on here because I've got the opacity, right? The transparency turned way up. I think it's like 85% or something like that, so you can barely see it. But the Googlebot can, and it can read that text. And that's how you can take a batch of images and geotag them, but make them unique for every location. Because every time you add text overlay, it makes that image unique. So what I do is I have my my virtual assistant go into YouTube and select he finds relevant videos. So like he'll go to YouTube and search tree removal. Then he sorts by the results by clicks on the filters button. In fact, let me just demonstrate this real quick. I'm just going to show this real quick. It's going to take a second. So what I do is for us to get 100% unique and original images, is we go to YouTube, might search something like tree removal, and we go on filters. I like to always select HD, and then we'll scroll down. I've got multiple images from this, from a lot of these top videos, but we'll click in here for a minute. Let me hit pause. And then what we do is we just find an image that is relevant. For example, I could say this one, although he's not cutting anything at that moment. And what we typically do is we go to theater mode, make sure that it's in HD setting, in this case 1080p. Then I'm going to just take a quick screenshot of that. And then we resize that image down to a size, because it makes it look a little bit sharper when you take a bigger image and then resize it. We might do something around 600 to 400 like that. And now that is a unique image. That's original because it's just a screenshot of a YouTube video, and then we lay text overlay on this. And so what I do is I have my VA gather about 100 relevant images from YouTube videos at a time, saves them into a Google Drive folder, and then I can geotag them using any sort of geotagger. Daryl's got one, I know, built into the Mass Page toolset. Something else that we've used as Mass Optimizer Pro, but there's a number of them. So whatever geotagging tool you use, so then we geotag and then we overlay, text overlay on here with the logo, so that we can use that same batch of photos for multiple locations because the text overlay makes them unique. Does that make sense? So, and by the way, Google does strip out the location information, like the EXIF data, geotagging, the coordinates, and all that kind of stuff when you upload, but it reads it on upload. So do it anyways. I see too many, well, it went, like, for example, if you upload a photo and then you go download it back from Google, all that data will be gone. But it's when you upload it, it reads it. So do that, if that makes sense. And last, one other thing, if you can get real photos from your client, if you're doing this for clients, get real photos, ask them to take photos from their mobile devices, guys, and have them upload those photos directly to their Google My Business profile, either through the GMB app as an owner, or they can even upload them as just a visitor through Google Maps. So as a customer photo, so to speak. Either way, original photos taken from a mobile device have all that real mobile data, EXIF data, location information, everything as part of the file. And it is much, much more powerful than doing what I just showed you with YouTube. The only problem is for a lot of lead gen assets and stuff like that, I need to create the photos, that's the method I just shared, okay? But that's really important, guys, to make sure that you're doing that. Video, if you have video, I recommend adding it. Again, try to get one from the customer if you can. If you're going to create videos, fine. Same type of thing. You want to add metadata to the MP4 file. There are a number of tools out there that do it. This is a free one, mp3tag.de. I know it's called MP3 tag, but you can actually add geodata to an MP4 file, which is a video file, and there's some templates there for you on how to optimize. All right, the GMB website, we talked about this. I like to always set mine to call now the primary button, which is the button at the top of the website. If we back up, that's this right here. Why? Well, for me, I like it for tree service contractors because, again, I've been doing this for about 10 years for tree contractors, and I'd say 85 to 90% of all the leads that we generate are always phone calls. There are very few form fills. I don't know why that is. For whatever reason, people, customers that are looking for tree services, 8 or 9 out of 10 will call as opposed to submitting a contact, like an estimate request form. So even though I'm a Lead Simplify user and Mass Page or Magic Page plugin and all that kind of stuff, like whatever reason, most of in this industry are calls. Most leads are generated through phone call. So I like to put that. Whatever your industry is, the norm. If people fill out forms more, then you might want to have that to make appointment or quote request or whatever the form is that will take people, whatever the button is that will take people directly to your form, your contact form. But for my industry, call now is the most appropriate button, okay? So as I was saying, guys, with the GMB websites, there's not much that we can manipulate as far as the SEO elements of the page. Here are what you can, though. The very top right here, this right here, which is the headline, which is the meta title. So I always like to put the company name there. It's the most appropriate for the top of the website, in my opinion. And then the meta title is the description. So in GM, what I mean, if I go back here, let's close out of here for a minute. We'll go back into here. We go to info. Oh, excuse me. Let me go to website. We're going to go to edit, and you'll see right here the headline, Tree Care HQ Roanoke. That's right here. So that's part of the meta title. So if we come back up here and we hover over it, you'll see Tree Care HQ Roanoke. And then you'll see the dash and then Tree Service Roanoke VA. Well, that's the summary, or the description right there. Okay, so that's the SEO title. Those two elements right there make up the SEO title or the meta title. Okay, so you can manipulate those. Then you can also manipulate the description, the summary header, which is an H2. That's the only H2 on the page that you can manipulate, right, that you can modify. So we go back to here again, we take a look at this. Oops, I must have clicked into here. That's this right here, your summary header. That is an H2, and that's going to be what you see right here at the top of the website, right there. You guys understand that? So again, if you were to go view page source on a GMB website, you'll see there are other H2s. For example, that is an H2, but we can't change that. This is an H2, but we cannot change that. This is the only H2 that we can change. So I like to work in a keyword there. And again, as I've mentioned, and I near me, because in my industry, and probably most industries now, anybody that starts to search in Google for something with local intent, then like near me, whatever the keyword is plus near me is always suggested. So people just tap that to complete the search. So near me terms are very, very powerful. So I optimize for those. Okay. Summary body, you see the next section. That's where I was talking about before, entity tuned SEO content. And then what I do is, for my industry, we've identified the most valuable terms. And again, we cannot make those heading tags, so we just bold that. And then we specifically add, secondary keyword plus near me. So again, bold section, primary keyword, then secondary keyword 1, secondary keyword 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. For me, it's typically what you see here. And then, as I mentioned here, we like to link out to start creating the associations to local sites. If you're mentioning the city, one of these types, dbpedia.org, Wikipedia or Wikidata page for the city, it's good to link to those to create an association to that location. If you're going to talk about a broader county, again, for like tree services, most of the time it's a city, right? We optimize for a city, but the city is typically inside of a larger county area. So for that, we also usually mention the county as well, because most tree service contractors will service more than just their local town or city. They will go further out. So I typically will mention the county as well, and then we will link to one of their like to the municipal government site for the county, and it's just to create that association. And then, as I talked about before, link out to your various tier 1 branded assets. All right, and tracking and reporting, I use Bright Local for that, but you guys can use whatever you want. We're going to keep moving. All right. So for entity assets, guys, this is very, very important, because as I was talking about before, the semantic web, it's really, really important to expand your entity footprint as much as possible and create the associations between them. You want to link back to each other often so that Google starts to add them to the entity's knowledge graph. All right, that's really, really important. So that's why I said this is one of the things that we've taught at Semantic Mastery for a long time is what we call the SEO Shield. Which includes a syndication network, like an ifttt.com triggered syndication network. It's branded, all branded profiles, all so that they all match the brand that you're promoting. Whether you're publishing content regularly, they get syndicated to those networks or not, it's not really as important as it used to be. That's more part of an organic SEO strategy anyway. But for maps specifically, it's important just to have all those major, like, social media and Web 2.0 accounts and profiles set up that are all commonly themed and branded and all interlinked where appropriate, so that they, Google again starts to build out that knowledge graph for the main entity, the brand itself. So all of those things. Now, again, the SEO Shield includes the IFTTT network, syndication network, as well as what we have been building, like, again, under Semantic Mastery, we developed the whole Google Stacks, Drive Stacks, whatever you want to call them. Years ago, we were the first ones to launch that back in 2015 under what was called RYS Academy. Then we launched RYS Academy Reloaded in 2018. And there's been a ton of people out there. You can go to Fiverr and find people selling Google Stacks or Google Cloud Links and all these other things. They were all built upon the methodology that we launched in 2015 called RYS Academy, which stood for Rank Your Shit Academy. And so Google Drive Stacks with the Google sites, so sites.google.com, is incredibly powerful, because Google loves Google, which is what we've been talking about since I started this webinar with you guys today, which is why if you optimize your Google My Business profile and fully use all of the tools available, you get rewarded. Well, the same thing occurs when you use Drive Stacks and G sites in your tier 1 entity assets. And that's why we call it an SEO shield, because we protect the money site by building all the kind of like this SEO firewall of all these high authority, the ID page included, Press Advantage organization page, Google sites, Google Drive files and folders, which is known as the Drive Stack, the IFTTT syndication network. All of these things are what links to the money site or your location landing page. And then you can just hammer, like throw kitchen sink spam at all of those tier 1 entity assets, and nothing of any negative consequence will get to your money site. Instead of building links direct to your money site, you build links to all of these tier 1 entity assets, these SEO shield assets, the firewall, right? So that you're preventing any potential negative effect from link building to your money site. And all that stuff kind of filters down through all these links that are created throughout this entity footprint, back down to your money site, your GMB map, CID map URL, and your GMB website. And as we, again, I just have to bring this up so that you guys understand what I'm talking about. Let me just show you. I know we're getting a little bit ahead here, but this is my local link building diagram. You can see a location landing page. It's in some cases that'll be a root, homepage of a domain. For a lot of clients, it's like that. If you've got a multi-location business, as I've got several of those, We have, you know, separate landing pages on their website for each location. So that's why I call it a location landing page. Again, whether that's the home page or a separate landing page, either way, they're one and the same. The GMB website and the GMB CID map, I consider all three of those money assets, right? All of three of those is like ground zero, or the you know, the golden frame, so to speak. So what I like to do is build out these tier 1 entity assets and manipulate my anchor text ratios going to any one of these or all three of these. And as kind of demonstrated a moment ago, like with here, you can see I have do follow links with keyword anchor text, exact match anchors. These are called target anchors, linking to specific parts of my, you know, my assets. The rest are all no followed, and then the iframe stack itself. Okay, does that make sense? So when I'm talking about, like, you know, SEO shield, you can almost see it here, right? This is almost like this is a shield of assets around your money site assets. And again, I consider these two as part of my money site assets now. They can't, by the way, just to be 100% clear, these are essentially tier 1 assets if you're promoting a self-hosted website, location landing page, whatever you want to call it. These are actually tier 1 links, but I like to try to group these in together to make like all three of these as one kind of like money site, all three assets being treated the same, so that I can keep my links clean to these, and then just build all, like I said, build this shield around these. And then we can just do like absolutely atrocious things to these, like stuff that you wouldn't ever tell your mother about. You know what I mean? Like kitchen sink spam stuff at these, and you can get away with it because all of these high authority type properties will essentially launder. I've always called it link laundering, right? Because it like launders any potential negative equity or negative effect from links through these high authority properties back down, so that essentially all you're doing is you're passing juice to these pages. If that makes sense. Okay. So that's why I say, guys, it's really, really important when it comes to entity assets to build out this stuff. I give you a ton of information in here about, you know, different ways. You know, there's again, this is not a pitch to sell our done for you marketing services. In fact, our store for Drive Stacks and Google Sites and everything is now owned by Marco and his partner Rob. They split from Semantic Mastery just a week ago. We made it official. So you know, they're the ones that build all that stuff, but it's an integral part of what we have at Semantic Mastery developed over the years, because we made it through multiple updates without any negative effect, where others typically have, you know, significant effects of updates. We haven't, because we try to only build links to our SEO shield assets as opposed to the money site itself, other than in very strategic points, which I'll explain when we get to link building. And I know we're getting so far behind. But anyways, entity assets, guys, again, go through here, read this. Most of this is self-explanatory. I found another great service that I've been using for a while. It's called Marketer Center. A lot of you are probably familiar with it. Andrew Scherer, I think is his name. He's the one that runs that. There's no affiliate link here for this, but it's a good service. If it's a valid, and I put this right up here, guys, right here. If you have a valid business address, then this is a great service to use, because you're building citations. Something I probably should have mentioned earlier, guys, when I was talking about having a valid business address or not, when I was, you know, describing whether you display the address or not for service area businesses. If you don't have a valid address, don't build citations unless you have access to the mailbox, right? So if you have like a UPS store or a virtual mailbox, PO box, whatever, if you're using any sort of mailbox that you have access to, then go ahead and build citations, you know, and try to build citations on the platforms that don't require a street address. But if you're using a spammed address, like when I say that, or like, because you know, over the last few years, there's been a lot of services out there where you can buy verified GMB listings, and they use like the pin drop method and all that kind of stuff. A lot of the times, those GMB locations are associated with like unsuspecting victims' homes or businesses, and do not build citations to those if those are the types of GMB maps listings you have, because what happens is when you build citations on those business directories, now that location, that address will start receiving physical mail, solicitation mail for credit card services, for merchant services, for marketing stuff, for marketing specialties like pens and business cards and all that kind of stuff. and it'll be addressed to the business name that doesn't actually reside at that location. And so people, trust me, I've had it happen to my own lead gen assets where I built citations to spammed addresses and they were reported and got suspended. So don't do it. If it's unless you have access to the mailbox, do not build citations that require a street address. If you do, however, then this is a great service because for 90 bucks, you get 60 citations and 60 social citations, which are essentially like Web 2.0 profiles where the name, address, and phone number are listed on a link to the website, and then they interlink it where possible. Local social mesh interlinks those so that, again, it starts to create the association between all of those assets as we were just talking about. So this is a really good service if you have a valid business address or access to the mailbox. If not, skip this, don't do it. There are other services out there where you can get social citations, which don't require street address. Just buy those instead. Press releases, again, is also another great citation source. So I would recommend that, okay? All right. So all that said, guys, there's a process here to go through for the entity assets. Again, I recommend, try to build all these out or order them, have them purchased, whatever. But it's important to try to constantly build out that entity footprint. The bigger you can make it, the better. All right. So let's get into GMB post silos, guys, and then we'll kind of run through the link building stuff because that's more like organic SEO stuff, but it does have an effect. So we'll get into some of that in just a moment. But this is really, really important because the GMB post silos, this is where, and by the way, guys, you can click this to make a copy. It's going to take you to the copy page. Just click make a copy and import that into your Drive account. And then keep a copy the way that it is, and then make copies of the copy so that you keep the first copy as a template. And then you want to make copies of the template so that you always have a blank template to make copies from for each new location. All right. And it's a very good possibility that we're going to be building a SaaS app at some point that will kind of house all of this information, as well as keep track of the post workbooks and all the stuff. Like everything will be in-house eventually, but that's several months away, and I'm not even sure we're going to do it. But this is the data. Let me just give you an example on this real quick. This is a GMB post workbook template that I use to keep all my, because my VAs do this for me, so I keep a workbook for each one of my brands, and then if they have multiple locations, each location gets its own sheet at the bottom. If it's anyways, it just keeps track of everything, and it gives all of the information needed to create GMB post silos, and they can keep track of everything that I want them to keep track of right here, so that I can go and once the post silos have all been published. Again, this is work that you can do manually to begin with, guys, but very quickly you want to pass this kind of stuff off to a VA. But I do recommend going through it manually a couple times so that you get familiar with the process and you understand what you're doing. But here again, you want to keep track of all these links, because then you can, as I was just talking about before, guys, you can build mass like spam links to these types of URLs, the GMB post URLs, and push power through the post silos up to wherever you want to, power up using post silos. So this is kind of just a way to keep track of all that stuff. Okay. So what I recommend is that you would create, make a copy, keep a copy of the template, then make a copy of the template once it's in your account. And then what I like to do is keep the data template page or sheet the way that it is. And then I click down and then I click duplicate. Then I name it after the location. And that way I have the original here, but I will have the, I would name this, locate whatever. I'm just gonna say location 1, if that makes sense. And that way I have, all my data here, and then I still have the data template to copy if needed. All right. So with that said, I'm going to talk about the different, and there's also, by the way, link building in tier 1, very similar. I have a local link building workbook. We'll get to that in a few minutes, but it's the same sort of thing. You want to make a copy, keep it as a template, and then make copies of the copy and assign it to each location. All right. So for here, there's a few things that I want to talk about here. There's what I call a push silo and a mirror silo. The push silo, I'm going to explain what each one is and kind of briefly describe this. This is really important, guys. With a GMB push silo, the reason I titled it or named it that was because you're pushing all of the power out through one CTA button URL in the GMB posts, okay? Because you're daisy chaining the rest of the posts together. So just so you understand what I'm talking about here, this is called a top of silo post, post A. Okay, so TOS post or top of silo post is post A. And what you want to do is the CTA button links to the target URL that you want to push power to. I've got money site signs up there, money signs up there, but it can be whatever thing you want to power up, guys. Think about it this way. Let's say you want to rank your location landing. Okay, we're talking about ranking GMBs today. And so, you know what, let me keep it onto that topic, because otherwise we'll go way down a rabbit hole. We don't have the time for that. But let's say what you want to do is link here to, let me actually close out of this for just a minute, because I want to open something up for you. Let me do this. I want to kind of dual track something here for a minute, guys, so I can show you something. Okay, so here we go. So what I like to do, guys, is create post silos to power up, you know, each one of these three things. Okay, so each one of these three things I consider money assets, right? So like zeros, tier 0, right? So instead of tier 1, tier 2, this is tier 0. So what I like to do is I like to do a push silo for my location landing page. Then so that means the first post in the silo, the CTA button, is going to link to my location landing page using either the learn more or the book CTA button to link to my location landing page URL. Okay, and then I do my subsequent posts. And people have asked me, because I usually do 5 or 6 posts per silo. Why did I choose 5 or 6? Is there some magic reason? No, I just selected that number when I started doing this method, testing this method, and it's always worked. So I've just gone with that. I would encourage testing. You might be able to do it with 3 posts. It might take you 12. I don't know. You might get better results from 12 posts than you do from 5. I don't know. I haven't tested that. So I just want to be real clear about that, guys. I just started picking 5 or 6 posts each time I do a post silo, and it's always worked for me. So I've just continued to do that. But again, I would encourage some testing if anybody wants to test with that and see if you get better results with deeper, you know, posts with more support, or silos with more supporting posts or not. Here's what the point that I'm trying to make. At the top of the silo, you want to have the first CTA button linking to that page that you want to push power to. Then you're going to link a support or publish a subsequent post, which would be supporting post 1 or GMB post B in this case. And the CTA button is going to link to the post URL from the top of silo post, so post number 1. All right, so to demonstrate what I mean, let's go back over here. So the Tree Care HQ Roanoke site that we're on here, I've only siloed these 2 posts together to show you what I'm talking about, to demonstrate what I want to share here, okay? So if we click into this post URL, this would be considered the top of silo post. And if we click on the map, the Learn More button, open link in new tab, you'll see that this is the CID map URL. You can see it right there, okay? So as I mentioned before, a push silo is all about pushing power at the top of silo post out through the CTA button to whatever URL you're trying to power up. So I like to do 3 separate post silos, one for this, one for this, and one for this, okay? In this case, because I do not have a location landing page associated with this project, I started with the CID map URL, and then whenever I go back and finish this, I will end up having another silo that will link to the GMB website, and then eventually I'll have a location landing page associated with this location as well, and I'll do another post silo for that, okay? So y'all get that. So that links to the top of, or excuse me, to the page that I want to push power to. All right, well, let's go back. Let's go back, and we're going to look at post number 2. All right, so this is the first supporting post in this silo. Okay, so if we click into this, the Learn More button now, I don't know if you can see it down at the bottom, guys, but that links, open link in new tab, to post number 1. Okay, so y'all get that? So post B links to post A through the CTA button, okay? Post C links to post, B, if that makes sense. Post D, so it's, remember, A links to money or to the whatever page you want to, or target URL that you want to push power to. Post B links to post A, post C links to post B, post D links to post C. You get it? So again, it's daisy chained together, unidirectional. They all just link from the subsequent post links to the previous post. That's how it works. Now, you can also add a text link in the post body. Okay, so back here, that's a text link to a supporting asset, like a tier 1 branded asset. Remember, these are no follow links, but what did I say before, guys? This is how you create an association between your Google My Business assets and your other branded profiles. You don't have to, that's optional. It's entirely up to you, but you can link to tier 1 entity assets that way. And that's how you start to, again, you start to build that association. In this case, what I did was I actually used somebody else's content, OPC, right, other people's content, for this post, which is just kind of a quick and dirty way to create GMB posts. Is just go find, I have a Feedly account for my blogger, Feedly Pro account for my bloggers to extract relevant content from for our projects. And so all I do is I have them, you know, I'm using an overlay with Pretty Links Pro, which is a WordPress plugin. But anyways, it's an overlay for me to basically create this overlay, which is a branded domain, but it's somebody else's content. And so all I do is I go like, and again, this is one of various ways that we produce GMB posts very, very quickly and efficiently. Page Rewriter is another one. Siphon AI, I'm sure you can do stuff with that. Daryl's tool. But this is a way to just straight up copy somebody else's without even rephrasing it and use it, because I'm giving attribution right here through this link. And when somebody clicks the attribution link, it shows the original source, but they're not really a competitor, and it actually provides a link back to whatever asset I want to push power to. In this case, the local treecarehq.com site. Anyways, that's just an example of one way that I can do it, because all I did was come in here and copy the first 2 paragraphs. I copied the title, the first 2 paragraphs, pasted them in here. Then I just went through and copied 1, 2, 3. You see that all the way through 5. And then I put the source, which is a attribution link. So I'm citing the source, which is what you should always do if you're using other people's content. And then I put a what I call CTA text, or call to action text, down here, which if we go back over here, you'll see that I have the call to action. That would be where I would paste that paragraph in, so that my VAs, every time they publish a post, that CTA paragraph will always be present at the bottom of the post. Does that make sense? So again, that's just a very quick and dirty way to use other people's content. But getting back to this, you can see again, this is, remember, this text link, guys, is optional, but I recommend that you do put a text link into tier 1 entity assets, or if you're going to be straight up copying using other people's content, that you link back to them, preferably with a redirect that you control. But that way you're actually citing the source and being appropriate with using other people's content. But the whole point here is that if you think about this, guys, now you take all of those GMB post URLs. Remember the URLs that I was talking about? That's these, not the share URLs, but these, the inner page URLs from the GMB website. All of those should be, you know, collected, gathered right here. The GMB post URLs right here. Does that make sense? And so what you'll do is once you've gathered all of that, now what you want to do is go back and build links to all of those post URLs. And guys, again, you can use either PBN links that are, you know, and use anchor text, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes, the anchor text ratios and how I figure that out and everything. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you can all, so, and just to be clear, I really developed this strategy using PBN links. I used spam mass links for a long time, but then I got away from it as I was kind of developing this process out, because I wanted to see what moved the needle the most, and anchor text ratios and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to do that when you're building mass links, because it's hard to really manipulate those sort of things like your anchor text ratios when you're doing mass links and everything to get them appropriate the way that I like it. So I did all the testing with PBN links, but then once I developed this and I figured out what worked, I started testing with mass, you know, spam links, and it works also. Okay, so I'm just letting you know, link building to those post URLs, as well as embeds and link building. Okay, most people are unaware of this, guys, but embeds, like I said, are incredibly powerful because they act as do follow links, bi-directional links, even on no follow platforms. Okay, and so what do I mean by that? If we were to come back here and take this post URL, let me show you something. Let me just go over here real quick. We'll go to iframe generator. I'm going to post that URL in there. I'm not going to actually optimize the name and everything else like I normally would. But if we preview this, take a look, guys. That's the GMB post URL right there. It's an iframe, right? So you can go out and buy an iframe gig, an embed gig. There's various places that do it. You know, we have it in our store, but you can go to Legit or Fiverr or anywhere, guys. And you don't do this with money sites, guys. Don't ever do this with money sites. But with GMB post silos, absolutely, you can do this, right? So you go out and you get an embed gig, and you submit the embed gig with iframes of your GMB posts from this particular silo. And then here's the kicker. Here's the important part. It's not just the embeds. And by the way, guys, not just any embeds work. What you want to do is get embeds on in relevant content. That is incredibly important. Not just the embed itself, but make sure that the embed is in content that is relevant to the project that you're working on. Does that make sense? And then link build to the pages where those embeds are. Okay, so a lot of the times, a lot of the embed gigs that you can purchase in various places will have an add-on option for a second tier set of links. Add that on. Or if you use your own link building tools, get the embed gig done. Once you get the report back, build links to those embeds. Again, relevant links with relevant anchor text. When we get the link building, you'll see, especially tier 2 link building, you'll see exactly how I find out which anchors to use. But that's how you power that up. So you can understand now why this is called a push silo, because you're pushing all the power that you accrue or pool into this silo out through one URL to one target URL. Okay, so going back to this one more time, let me close that down. Each one of those becomes a target URL for a push silo. And you don't have to just stop at one push silo, guys. You can, again, for example, let's say on my location landing page, I do like 4 different major services, right? So let's say tree trimming and pruning, it'd be one, tree removal would be another, stump grinding and removal might be the third, and say the fourth one is land clearing, which again, those are the 4 services that we promote for tree service contractors. So what I would do is perhaps a separate push silo for each one of those services, so that each post within the silo could be optimized for one of the keywords within each one of those service sets. So in other words, for like tree removal, I might have like tree removal general up here, or tree removal city state, or tree removal near me, or whatever. And then I would go through here and do like large tree removal, tree felling. This one might be, dead tree removal, or hazardous tree removal, or emergency tree removal. You guys understand what I'm saying? You start to build that just like you would a silo on your money site. If you understand silo architecture and how to stack keywords and all that kind of stuff, then it's the same process. It's what we call theme mirroring. I learned that term from Network Empire way back in, I think, 2013. That is an awesome term. It is called theme mirroring, and we have built an entire SEO methodology on theme mirroring. You silo your money site blog posts, and we're going to talk about a mirror silo in just a moment, but you mirror that same silo structure with GMB posts, then you can mirror that same silo structure with YouTube videos, and then you can do it with press releases and all that. It's called theme mirroring. It works incredibly well. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying, but it's very, very powerful stuff. All right. So that's called a push silo. Again, like I said, I could do one for tree removal. I could do one for tree trimming and pruning. I could do one for stump grinding, and all pointing back to just the location landing page if I needed to, and don't always need to do that. So just so you're aware, a lot of the times I'll just do a GMB push silo to the location landing page, and I'll target each one of my, so in this one, I might be just a general tree service type of GMB post. Then this one will be about tree trimming and pruning. This one will be about tree removal. This one will be about stump removal and stump grinding. And then the next one will be about land clearing. Does that make sense? And so I'll do one push silo that covers all of the services that are covered on or mentioned on the location landing page, and I'll monitor, and then I'll link build to it and do embeds and link building to it and see what kind of movement I get. And if I'm not getting as much movement as I want, well, then what I'll do is I might do a separate push silo targeting just the tree trimming and pruning section of that page, right? And guys understand how to do jump links or anchor links, not anchor text, but anchor links. You can create a jump link out of the HTML header, or excuse me, the H2 header on that page for the tree trimming and pruning section or the tree removal section, right? And now you take the GMB push silo, the target URL, and you link to that section, that jump link on that page, and then every one of the posts in this silo are going to be relevant to that particular service. Hopefully you guys understand that. Again, you can get really, really in depth in how you do all this kind of silo linking stuff. Just let your imagination run with this, guys. You can get a lot of power out of this, because remember, you can hammer this stuff with any sort of links that you want, and all that power pushes out right there. Okay. All right. We got to move on. The next one, guys, mirror silo. I know it's 5 o'clock. I can't believe how long this has gone, Daryl. I hope this is okay with you.
That's all right. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Okay.
A lot of value.
So the mirror silo, guys, this is where I was talking about theme mirroring. Again, this can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to try to explain this, and then we'll move on to link building. But as I talked about before, if you have a location, a money site that you're, that you have silo architecture built, you've added, you've built that into the site, which I recommend that you do. Although I see way too many SEOs way overcomplicate silo builds. They don't need to. Silo structure should be kept as simple as possible. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I mean that, guys. Keep your silo structures as simple as you possibly can. Don't add too much, like, categories and subcategories and ultimately posts and all that stuff. In some cases, it makes sense to do that, but for most local stuff, and remember that we're talking about GMB stuff today, guys, so it's local businesses, like all you need is what I call a simple silo structure instead of versus a complex silo, which would be categories, subcategories, and posts. You want to stay to just categories and posts, like, so top level categories and posts. It makes it so much easier to direct internal link flow, link equity throughout the site. It's just so much easier to manage, period. So that all said, if you understand silo architecture and you understand, the importance of having your primary, most important keyword at the top of a silo, and then any sort of LSI, or variations, supporting keywords, longer tail keywords, any one of those terms, they're all interchangeable. You want to have supporting posts that are, targeting each one of those kind of like supporting keywords or groups of supporting keywords that are very similar, close variants as they're called. So you might publish a blog post that contains some close variants of a supporting keyword, right? So it's optimized for that supporting keyword and its close variants. And then that post is going to link up to your top of silo page, the page that you want to rank. I use internal blog posts, not necessarily to rank the blog post, although there is absolutely benefit for doing so, but as an internal linking opportunity to power up the page that I want to rank that's going to generate leads, if that makes sense. And again, if you're using syndication networks, every blog post is going to syndicate out to a syndication network, which is going to automatically create backlinks, social signals, and bookmarks to those posts. And if you have an internal contextual link within the post body on a lot of the syndication network sites, you're going to get that link from those Web 2.0 properties as well, with an anchor text link back up to the target page, your top of silo page. All of that stuff is powerful because all of those become additional link building targets. All of your posts on this web syndication network properties become link building targets, which again, don't build links directly to your money site. You do it the way that I'm talking about, and then you can power up all of those tier 1 entity assets, and it pushes juice back through those URLs back to your money site, but it keeps your money site clean, right? And so that's what I'm talking about. So when it comes to a silo, top of silo page, your broadest keyword, then you're going to have your supporting article post 1, supporting article post 2, supporting however much depth you need to add to that silo to get the result that you want. That's going to be dependent on your market and your research and all that kind of stuff. The point that I'm trying to make is typically the money site is where you'd want to start if you have a money site. I've done a lot of GMB stuff, guys, where I don't have money sites, and that's fine. You can totally rank a GMB without a money site. It does help though to have a money site. There is no question in that. Okay. But what I'm saying is so let's just take one silo, top of silo page on the money site, and let's say you had 3 supporting posts like what we're seeing in this diagram. So the GMB post mirror silo is where you first have the silo on your money site, and you don't have to have a completed silo first before you do this. You can, every time you publish a blog post, you can go mirror it into a GMB post. What I mean by that is, again, let's say on your money site, you've got your top of silo page, and then you have 3 supporting posts. So a mirror silo using GMB posts would be your first post in the silo for GMB is going to link with the CTA button, is going to link to its associated target URL, which is your money site top of silo page. Okay, you guys get that? So the CTA button links to your money site page, the same silo. Okay, you can actually take the content from that page, condense it, use tools like Siphon AI. I'm sure we'll do this, but you can rephrase it, you can condense it, shorten it instead of expand it, and you can take a few choice paragraphs from the money site page and use that text, just rephrase it, use that text as the post text for the post body of the GMB post. Then you link the CTA button to that top of silo page. Then when you publish your supporting article on your money site, so supporting article 1, now you're going to take the content from there. You can post original content if you want for GMB posts. I'm just trying to make you more efficient, right? We always try to find ways to be more efficient. So we'll take the first paragraph or two, rephrase it. Then we'll take and the conclusion paragraph as well. We'll rephrase it, and we'll put in between the first two paragraphs and or we'll put like in the call to action text, because we typically have a call to action text paragraph at the bottom. We will, whenever we're doing a mirror silo, at the bottom of the post, we'll say, click learn more to see full post. Okay, does that make sense? And so what happens is then the learn more button in this case is going to link to the first supporting post on your money, or on your blog, your money site. Okay, so you understand the CTA button is, so instead of daisy chaining the posts together through the CTA buttons like we did in a push silo, each one of the CTA buttons are going to link to its corresponding post on the money site. Okay, and then you daisy chain these posts together just using the GMB posts together, just using the text links, contextual links, naked URLs, which are no follow links, which is okay, because the point that we're trying to make here is, remember, you're still linking and then this is not a good example because this is not a mirror silo, but if this was a mirror silo, then this link right here would actually be linking to, well, this is the top of silo post. This is the first supporting post. So this post URL right here would be linking to this URL up here. Now, again, remember, a push silo, because we have do follow links, just to back up for a minute, because I want to make this distinction very, very clear, guys. This has to be, you guys have to understand this distinction here. What we're doing in a push silo is, because the CTA button URLs are do follow links, we are daisy chaining all the posts together so that all of the link equity that we can push into this post silo through all this external stuff that we're going to be doing, it all accrues at every point. It gets pushed up to the next, through the CTA button, up to ultimately where it exits one point, all that link equity, one point. So these are CTA buttons linking to the previous GMB posts, so that all the power pushed into this post from external link building flows through that button URL, do follow button URL to this, and likewise all that power plus all the power that this is accrued now pushes up to here, and so on and so forth until it exits this one point. But with a mirror silo, it's different, because each one of these CTA buttons are linking to its associated post URL on the money site, and then it just uses a text link to link up, which is a no follow link, up to its previous post URL in the GMB post silo. So you're not actually pushing equity through those text links to the previous posts, but you're making the association. That's what silos those posts together. And then you still do all the same link building and embeds and link building that I talked about before, but each one of these is actually pushing all of the accrued equity, link equity, to this individual post through the button URL to its associated post URL on the money site. And these text links, all they do is creating the silo, the relationship between those keywords in that keyword set. Okay, does that make sense? So just so you guys are aware, that's how you do a mirror silo. Now you can do the same thing with YouTube, by the way. If you're doing YouTube videos, guys, there's a tool like, I'm sure a lot of you guys were familiar with Vidnami, which recently has been now under GoDaddy or whatever, and I've not used it. I canceled my subscription when I knew it was going to GoDaddy, but I'm using something now called wave.video. There's another one that was out recently on AppSumo called Pictory that does something similar. Anyway, very quickly, you can take these GMB post silos, these GMB posts within a silo, and turn them into real short little videos with text and voiceover that, you know, it's text-to-speech voiceover, but it works. You can create very quickly these videos from GMB posts. Why do I say do it from the GMB posts? Because GMB posts have a 1,500 character maximum. Blog posts can be, you know, now we used to do like a lot shorter blog posts, but we're actually doing entity-tuned content for blog posts now, and it does work a lot better. But what I'm saying is, for GMB posts, like this short little post right here could be turned into a video very, very quickly using a tool like that. And then you can silo YouTube videos together using playlists and internal linking, both from the YouTube video description as well as from comments. By the way, that's how you get a do follow link out of YouTube, is through the comment section. But you daisy chain the videos together in the same exact structure, so you mirror the same structure. And then you can do press releases, which again I highly recommend, but then you can do a press release silo where you link with a exact match keyword anchor to the GMB post URL, because GMB post URLs can take exact match keyword anchors even when they get published on 250 plus media and news outlets, news sites, right? You would never want to do that to your money site because you have over optimized anchor text. Easy. Like that would you could really kill a money site very quickly by, if you don't know what you're doing with press releases and using keyword anchors. Branded anchors, naked URL anchors, fine. But any on generics would be fine, or what I call miscellaneous anchors. But when you're using target URL, or excuse me, target anchors or topic anchors, which are keyword or keyword plus location anchors, like you could very quickly over optimize your anchor text, your backlink profile, going direct to money site. But GMB posts are different. It's a Google property. So what I'm saying is, and again, guys, think about this. You have a money site post silo. You mirror that with GMB post silo. Then you can, if you want, create YouTube silo using playlists, description links, and then comment links. And then you can also do a press release silo with exact match keyword anchor linking to its associated GMB post and embed the associated YouTube video. So you understand now you've got a silo in your money site, silo in GMB, silo in YouTube, silo in press release. They all mirror the exact same structure, and then you use the press releases like the final push to push power with exact match keyword anchors. Remember, you can't get any keyword anchors in these buttons. So that's how you make the keyword association with the GMB posts, is through an exact match keyword anchor through a press release. It's going to get picked up and published on 250 plus sites, 70 of which typically are do follow links. And so now you're pushing link equity through an exact match anchor to the GMB post, and you also have a YouTube embed for press release platforms that allow YouTube embeds like Press Advantage does, that now has, again, your iframe, and you're pushing power through the press releases into the YouTube video, which then also has the same mirrored structure, internal linking, and linking back out to your GMB posts and your money site posts. Does that make sense? So you can see how all of this stuff comes together, and you push power throughout all of these things, that you're building this knowledge graph in Google's semantic web that starts to just, it's exponential. It's geometric growth. It's not linear growth. It's geometric growth. You guys understand that, how powerful that is? That's why I said it's incredibly powerful. By the way, you don't have to go the route of doing YouTube videos and press release silos unless you need it. Just stick with money site silo posts and GMB posts, and then see what happens. See how much movement you can achieve. And then you'll have YouTube silos and press release silos as an extra push, right? As a backup in case you're not getting the desired result from just regular silo posts and GMB silo posts together. Okay, so again, you don't have to cover all this stuff, guys. I just wanted to make sure you understood what it was that we were talking about. So that's what I call a mirror silo, guys. Very, very powerful. I would encourage you to, start playing around with that and see what kind of results you can get. All right, because we're so far on time, guys, I'm only going to be able to go over here one link building. Perhaps we can do another webinar at another time where I can go into more depth. One thing, and this is not to pitch Semantic Mastery Mastermind, guys, but I know a lot of this stuff is not being covered. If you want that, and again, I'm just going to say this one time, but at the top, if you click on the Semantic Mastery Mastermind link, it'll take you over. It is an affiliate link for Daryl, so Daryl will get credit. But if you want like full training on all this stuff, guys, I'm happy to do another webinar with you, Daryl, by the way. But I just want to make it clear that if people have a ton of questions about this kind of stuff, that's the best place to get answers to them.
Heck yeah. We'd love to have you.
Okay, that's great. And I'm happy to come back again, Daryl, for real. And again, this was not intended to be a pitch, guys, but I just want to make that available to you in case you guys want additional help with this stuff. All right, so lastly, guys, let's cover this. And then, like I said, the other things we'll have to cover at another time. But the local link building workbook, okay, I mentioned this in the beginning of the webinar, guys, that I didn't care about organic ranking for several years, like seriously, for probably about 4 years in my career up until earlier in this year. I didn't care about it at all because it just, through my own data for this industry, about 80% of the leads have come through Google Maps, the Maps 3-pack. So I just focused on that and Google Ads because, like I said, I run it for some clients. And so that was it. I didn't care about organic ranking. So a lot of the times my Maps profiles would be ranked in the 3-pack, but the organic page, the location landing page, would be on page 3 or page 4. Like, and it's because I just didn't care. Like, it didn't matter to me. So that was not an issue. However, as I mentioned also at the beginning of this webinar, in the middle of June, a lot of my GMB assets, fortunately, and I think there was a reason because a lot of them are lead generation assets, and I think Google's aware of that. That's why I had literally dozens of in tank not get suspended, but just drop in ranking, like from the vast majority being in the Maps 3-pack to like average position of 15. So I had a lot of work to do. And during that time, I said, well, shit, I focused too much on Google My Business. If I had also had organic rankings, then it wouldn't have been a total loss. Like it wouldn't have hurt as bad because I would have still had leads coming in from organic rankings. So as of this year, I started really started focusing on, and as of June mainly, on organic rankings as well. And fortunately, I've discovered some really good methods that work, and that's what I'm going to share here. And I've gotten a lot better at that. So now I try to rank not just in maps, but also organically for this reason, okay? And so that's where we're getting at today, all right? That's where we're at with this. So local link building workbook, just like I mentioned before, click make a copy into your account. Once you've made a copy into your account, then copy the copy so that you always have an original as a template. And then I'll show you what we're going to do with this. All right, and by the way, this first sheet down here, this was just an example so that you guys could see what one that was filled out looked like, okay? So what I typically do is, again, make a copy in your account, so import it in your account through that copy link, and then from here, make a copy going forward with, and what I do is assign it to each project. Again, if there's each project, we're typically going to be optimizing for multiple keywords. So what I typically do is I keep this sheet as kind of like the data template sheet. So it just says keyword 1, click the drop down, click on, duplicate. And then once you duplicate it, rename it after the keyword that you're going to be optimizing for, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this for now because we don't need it. And this is actually the template, so I don't want to actually edit that. Let me make a copy of it and we'll edit that one. Let me close that out. All right. So then, like I said, I make a sheet for each keyword that I want to optimize for. But in this case, again, we're just going to cover the highest level, broadest of keywords, which is going to be tree service and then whatever the city name is. And sometimes city plus state abbreviation, whatever. In this case, I just went with tree service Baltimore. Now, I created this, I don't know, a couple of months ago. So I'm sure that these have shifted around. But that's not what's important. What's important is what we're looking at here and kind of the methodology here, okay? So let me just explain what we're talking about. If I were to come over here and go to Google, and I'll show you what we do. So for local link building, what I have found, and I learned this, I always give credit where credit is due, guys. I never regurgitate somebody else's information without giving proper credit. And Matt Diggity, he has this free on his blog, and it's on his YouTube channel. But he talks about link building with this methodology, which is to just go look at your top 10 competitors. In this case, it's important to only compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges. So I do not look at directory sites that are ranked. Most local business type of search queries will return a lot of directories like Yelp and Angie's, which formerly Angie's List, Home Advisor. In my case, in the industry that I'm in, Lawn Starter is a directory site for a lot of tree service and landscaping contractors. So I see those directory sites over and over and over again for most search queries in the tree service industry. So those are those are oranges. I want to compare apples to apples. So I'm going to look at my top 10 local business type websites as whatever's in the top 10 as my organic competitors. And then what I do is get an average. I first of all classify how many links they have based upon what type of anchor text category they fall in. So let me give you an example. First, let me just pull the SERP up real quick, and then I'll come back to that. Okay. So you'll see that these are my anchor text categories. There's only 5. Brand/URL, because brand name or variations of the brand name, and naked URLs and variations of the naked URL. Those are all they're all considered brand/URL anchors, okay? So that's HTTP, HTTPS, www, non-www, justdomain.com without the HTTP protocol, all those various versions, brand name, variations of the brand name with LLC or Inc., brand names without them, brand name plus city, like all those types of, plus the city that it's located in, whatever. All those types of things are all considered brand/URL anchors, okay? So that's category number 1. Topic anchors are keyword only. So like tree service, tree removal, tree trimming service, arborist tree care, right? Stump grinding and removal, right? Those would be topic anchors. Target anchors would be keyword plus location modifier, tree service Baltimore, tree removal Richmond, VA, tree trimming Culpeper, Virginia. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, those are called target anchors. Miscellaneous, or another term for those, would be generic anchors. Click here, learn more, read more, website, go here, learn more, and book buttons, like from the GMB post. Those would be considered miscellaneous anchors. Long strings of text, such as a blog post title linking back as the anchor text, the title is the anchor text linking back to the blog post URL. I consider that, even if there's keywords present in that, which there should be in the blog post title, because it's a long string of characters, several words strung together, I consider that miscellaneous anchor text. Okay, you guys get that? And then frame or empty anchors would be an iframe, an image link that does not include alt text. Those would be considered empty anchors as well. So again, and these are typically types of terms because I use Majestic as backlink analysis. I love looking at trust flow metrics and stuff like that. So these are basically like you'll in Majestic, you'll see they call them empty anchors, and that's why I kind of got that. But iframe or empty anchors. That was, again, iframes, image links, redirects. 301 redirects would be an empty or a frame anchor essentially. So there you go. All right. So all I do is I use the tier one asset. Excuse me. I get the average ratios from my top ranked competitors, non-directory sites. Again, we want to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So if we go take a look at Tree Service Baltimore, Davy.com, number one. That's a local business. Well, that's actually that business is in multiple states up and down the East Coast. So they're a big competitor. But as you notice, that is a location landing page. So that is a local page for this bigger company. So that's fine. That's a local business competitor. Okay. Yelp directory, that's not relevant to me, not for what we're going to show, what I'm going to show you here. MD Tree Service for Maryland Tree Service, that's relevant. Baltimore Tree Experts, that's relevant. Angie's not, BBB is not, Home Advisors not, Arbor Masters Inc., that is relevant. Bartlett, that's actually relevant. That wasn't present before, but now it is. So a couple of these weren't present before when I created the spreadsheet, but that's interesting. So the organic SERPs have shifted, which I knew it would, but these are interesting. So I would go back, and guys, by the way, you don't have to go back and redo this sheet every time that you go do another keyword search. Just do it the first time and consider it done. If every few weeks or a couple of months or whatever you want to go back and redo the sheet for whatever's present at that time, fine, do it. But all I'm saying is you don't want to come in here once a week and start rearranging stuff, and because it's going to change your anchor text ratios. Just go with whatever is up front first, and then you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. Okay, but at the time that I actually did this, you can see that MD Tree Service was in number one position, Davy.com was in number 3, and now Davy's in number 1, and MD Tree Service is in number 3. So they've transposed their positioning. Okay. Baltimore Tree Experts was in number 5. It looks like now it's in number 4. Anyway, the point here is that I'm trying to make, guys, you'll see that there are no Keel Tree Experts, that they actually are still number 10. I think that was still number 10 down here. It looks like they are. Okay, so some of these are still relevant. Bartlett, okay, so actually most of these are interesting. I thought it changed quite a bit. So it hasn't changed that much. They've just actually swapped in positions. So my point here is, guys, what do I do here is then I go over to Majestic. Again, I like Majestic. It's the kind of the backlink analysis tool that I learned on many years ago. So when I started focusing on organic rankings again, I started looking at this. All right, so let's just take a look at this. I started using Majestic. And by the way, I've also looked, I've over the last several months when I started really getting back into doing organic SEO for local businesses as well, I looked at Ahrefs or Ahrefs, whatever you call it, in Moz Pro and Majestic. And I hands down like Majestic better than all of them for back, and also SEMrush, by the way. But I like Majestic best for backlink analysis because Majestic automatically filters out low quality links that really pass no page rank or equity whatsoever. And so does Google. Google will know that those links are there, because even if they're non-index links, Google will know that they're there, and you can absolutely prove that by going to Search Console, doing a links to your site, external links, export report, and you'll see that even links that aren't indexed are shown in your external links report. Google will not show you the actual URL that the link is on. They'll just show you the domain. when you export that from Search Console, but you'll see domains in there that even like, my point is, Google knows they're there, but they don't really count for much. Majestic automatically filters that stuff out, links that are of so low quality that they really have no impact. And I like that because it allows me to focus on only those links that are producing, that are actually pushing some power. And so SEMrush, MozLocal, and Ahrefs all show a lot more links than what Majestic do. And I don't like that because it makes it harder to do the kind of research that I'm going to show you here. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to copy this URL real quick and we're going to jump over here. And we're going to take a look at this. So at the time that I did this report, when I generated this as for an example purposes, there was 15 links. And when I say links, guys, I'm talking about referring domains, because you can have hundreds of links from one domain. And the way that it works, in case you were unaware of this, is there is one link that is given, if you have multiple links from the same domain, there's going to be one link that is given the most weight, and the rest of them carry a lot less weight, a lot less authority. And that's the way that Google handles it. And Majestic has actually, just in the last like 60 days, has actually built that directly into their backlink analysis. And you'll see that if we actually go take a look at backlinks, you'll see where it says distinct. If you see where they'll have a plus sign like here, and you open that up, you'll see that there are some distinct links there. But then there are also, typically when you see like a whole bunch of links coming from one domain, like from a footer link, for example, there will be a lot of them that'll say like non whatever, where they're not really distinct links, so they carry a lot less weight. So it's whatever's usually listed at the top here, guys, that is going to be. So if whatever's up here at the top is the link, that's going to be the one that's considered the most powerful. And you're not going to really see any examples of what I mean in these that I'm aware of. But if you do enough backlink research with Majestic, you'll start to notice that as well. So what I'm talking about here, guys, is when I go to summary, is I'm looking at the referring domains. That is really what I consider the number of backlinks, okay? And that's because, again, it's really going to be one link that's given the most weight or authority from any given domain, all right? So from here, if we take a look at this, you can see at the time, they must have lost several, which is interesting, because this is showing MD Tree Service. When I did this, there was 15 links, and right now it's showing 7. Which is interesting. So what I do, guys, is all I do is I click into backlinks. By the way, you can also see this down here, but sometimes, depending on how many links you have and how many anchor texts and stuff, it will not give you all of them. It will only go up to a certain point, and then it'll have a gray area that has a percentage, and it'll say like other or whatever. So I don't typically use this anchor text wheel unless, like in this case, I might be able to because it's only a few. But oftentimes what I do is just go up to the backlinks tab. And what you know what, I know what I'm doing wrong here, and I'll show you this in just a moment. This is something that I almost forgot to mention, and I'm glad actually this is why there's a discrepancy. It's showing 7 links here, 7 referring domains, and there's 15 here. I'll show you why in just a moment. But first, let me show you how I categorize the anchor text. I just go into the backlinks, and I go right on down. That is a domain brand/URL anchor. That's a miscellaneous anchor. That is, that one's what I would consider a miscellaneous anchor because it's a long, even though it's got keywords in it, it's a long string. Okay, this would be another brand/URL. This would be another generic or miscellaneous, another miscellaneous. This would be another brand/URL. Okay, so all I do is I go to this page and I go right on down the line and I say, okay, how many out of the referring domains, in this case, should be 15, and I'm going to cover that in just a moment. But I would just go on down the line and count first how many brand/URL anchors are present in the backlinks page here. And again, it's just a manual process, but I would just go 1, 2, 3. And so I would mark 3 down right here is number of brand URL anchors. Then I would go back and say, okay, how many topic anchors? In this case, I don't see any, which would be like just tree service or, tree removal, tree trimming service, whatever. I don't see any. So I'd mark it as 0. Then I would go back through and count how many target anchors. So that would be tree service Baltimore, tree removal Baltimore MD, that kind of stuff. I'd see 0 in this count. So I would just mark that as 0. So anyway, I would go on through there, and then I'll also look at frame or empty anchors and see how many are there. And then I would put that number in there. And this number right here, number of links, should match this number when you're done. That's just a reference point to make sure that you've accounted for all the links, all the referring domains. That's all that is, okay? And then I've automatically, just got the, formula in there that will turn that into a percentage, how much of each one of these anchor text categories. Like, what is the overall percentage of those anchor texts in each category? Okay. So really quickly, guys, let me just explain why there's discrepancy between what I have in my spreadsheet there and what's on this page. And this is going to give me an error message in just a minute. Majestic has been doing this lately. I'm just going to refresh and it should be fine. Okay. All right. You notice how up here it says, would you like to switch to, because right now all I'm looking at is the backlinks that are built to this specific URL, plus or minus the trailing slash. That is irrelevant. But it's specifically to this, well, you know, as you just saw a moment ago, let me refresh it, this URL. Now, since this is the home page of the site, I should switch to, would you like to switch to the entire root domain, essentially. When I click that, you'll see it switches to root domain. Now you can see actually, since the last time I did this report, they've actually gained 7 links instead of lost what I thought before. It went from 15 to actually 22. And the reason why is because, guys, any one of the, remember, mdtreeservice.com, any one of the variations, whether it has the S and HTTP or not, whether it has www or not, all of those are going to all links built to variations of that URL are going to, because it's the home page, they're all going to resolve to the same location, which would be the root domain. So in this case, I actually want to click through and look at and analyze the root domain. However, if we were to do something like that for Davy, let me show you why it would be such a big discrepancy. Okay, which is why if it's an inner page URL like this one or like this one for Bartlett, which is also another big company, then I'm only going to analyze the specific, the links built to that specific URL. Okay, if it's a home page, then I want to look at the root domain, because all of the variations of that URL to the root domain, to the home page, I should say, are going to be relevant to that particular ranking, like for that page, that home page to be ranked. Does that make sense? You guys understand what I'm saying? If I were to take a look at this URL, you'll see that this page, so this was the Bartlett page, or excuse me, the Davy page. This page itself only has 8 referring domains, so this has gone up too. So this has 8 referring domains. But if I were to switch to the davy.com root, take a look at the difference. So what am I comparing, right? This would not be relevant. Looking at the root domain would not be relevant because it's an inner page that is ranked for this search query. So I want to look at that page URL. If it's a home page ranked for this query, then yes, I want to switch that to root domain. All that said, like I said, I would just go through here, take a look at the URL, which would be this one. I would go to backlinks. I would start counting down. And by the way, I also go to status. I only want to look at live links. So there we go. That's the difference. Okay. Remember, we go back to summary for this for the inner page. Oh, actually, there's 8 right there. So I don't know what just happened, but right there we can see number of links is 7 here, and now it looks like it's at 8. If we click into backlinks, then what I do is I always just look at the live links. Sometimes you'll see that some that are deleted, which will still show here. Well, that's not what I want to look at. I just want to look at what's live. So all that said, now we are left with however many links that was, 7, or it looks like 8. And I would just go on down the list, brand URL, miscellaneous, 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 miscellaneous. So I would have 2 brand or 3 brand URL and 5 miscellaneous anchors. Does that make sense? So very quickly I can categorize how that works out. Now the goal here is, and by the way, why do we not want to look at directory sites? Does anybody have a guess? What's really interesting, I bet a lot of you don't know this, is directory sites rank on internal links and authority. Authority from internal links. Okay, you all understand that? Like if we were to take this URL right here, which is ranked number 2 in Google search for Tree Service Baltimore, which this is a competitive area, it's a major metropolitan area, so this is a competitive area, and Yelp, this page is ranked number 2, and go take a look at this real quick and you'll see what I mean. You see that, guys? That page has 0 backlinks because Majestic does not show internal links. It only shows external links. That page has 0 backlinks in its ranking. Number 2 position organic for a competitive term in a major metropolitan area. Why? Because of internal links, because it's a directory site. The domain itself has a shit ton of authority. And I don't mean Moz's metrics, domain authority metrics. I mean just like link equity, page rank, has a ton of authority because it's got a lot of external links. If we were to take a look at this right here, look at this. It says there are 338 million backlinks or whatever. This shows 627,200, fresh links to the root domain. So all that link equity throughout the domain, look at that, trust flow is 76. Wow, that's impressive. All that's pushing through internal linking structure to this page. That's why that page is ranked. Not only that, but if you were to compare this page using a tool with something like SEO Surfer or something like that, by the way, you also do not want to tune your content with these being considered as part of the SERPs when you're using a tool like Surfer, because if you take a look at this in Surfer, and I don't have time to go into that, but I could show it to you guys. This is going to show this page as having 3,500 words, whereas this page right here has 600. Does that make sense? The reason why is because this has got the endless scroll option, and it's got the keyword 1,000 times over in it. So if you were trying to compare this URL in a SEO tuning tool like Surfer SEO, for example, again, it's apples and oranges, because it's going to skew your results and tell you, well, you need to publish a page that has an average of 2,200 words, when in all reality, if you just averaged out the word count from just your top local competitors, which would be these here, you would have an average word count of say 700, right? And again, if you take a look at these directory sites, these pages, we'll just do another one, for example. Angie's not a good example because Angie.com was actually, that's a new domain. It used to be Angie's List, and a lot of those redirects have not shown yet, but let's just take a look at BBB or Home Advisor. Okay, again, it will skew your results significantly. So do not compare. You're not competing with directory sites. Yes, you are competing with them in the organic SERPs. However, what you're tuning for, you can't compete with them, so don't even compare. What you want to do is you want to compete with only your local business competitors. Hopefully you guys understand all that. I'm going to just very quickly just show this one more time. So again, that URL, Home Advisor, has 5 backlinks, and it's ranked page 1. Okay, we're going to look at just the last one, and that's going to be this one here. So they rank with virtually no backlinks, is my point. No external links. This has got 2 backlinks. Okay, so really the only thing you're competing with are these local business competitors, and all I do is get a count of referring domains. Then I go through, and whatever is determined to be the most powerful backlinks, or excuse me, yeah, so if there's multiple links from one domain, the most powerful one is going to be linked at the top. So that's going to show what the anchor text is. That's how I calculate anchor text ratios. So to get back to this, the whole point in showing you all of that, guys, is because this actually does not take that much time. When you have this, this will calculate everything for you. Just delete out, whenever you get, what I do is I go in and I put my top ranked competitors in at the position, the row that they would be in appropriately, and then I delete the empty rows, if that makes sense, so that all you're left with are these, just like this. Okay, and then right here it's going to give you your anchor text ratios. All you want to do is get close to that. All you want to do is get your target page or pages, if you want also to try to treat the GMB website and the CID map URL like money pages, all you want to do is try to get close to those ratios. It doesn't have to be exact, just get close. The number of links does not matter. This is the average number of links for the top ranked competitors, but that actually does not matter at all. What matters is getting your anchor text ratios close, because as we've talked about before, guys, we're going to do a shit ton of link building to all of these tier 1 entity assets. So we're going to push a ton of power through these links to these pages. So all we need to do, it doesn't matter about the quantity here. What matters is the anchor text ratios. You get that close. All it has to be is close. It doesn't have to be exact. And if you ever have any doubt, err on the side of brand URL anchors. So this is actually an anomaly. I probably need to create another keyword down here in another location entirely. Like maybe tree service Richmond, VA. Maybe I'll do that next, and I'll add that perhaps the next time I do this. But my point that I want to make here is I've, again, for the last several months, guys, I've been studying organic ranking signals for and backlinks for local business tree service contractors. And what I have found is, and this is it's almost always, this is an outlier here. What I want to say is 60 to 80% of the anchor text ratios are usually, and the vast majority of times, for any search query like this, the vast majority of the time, 60 to 80% are brand /URL anchors, and 15 to 35% miscellaneous anchors, with the remaining 5 to 15% split between target anchors and empty anchors or frame anchors. Let me rephrase that one more time, or say that one more time, guys. The vast majority of tree service local business sites that are ranked in the top page results or the top 10 results have 60 to 80% brand/URL anchors, 15 to 35% miscellaneous anchors, and the remaining 5 to 15% split between target URL anchors and frame or empty anchors. Does that make sense? Very rarely do I see topic anchors. And honestly, and that's why I thought this was kind of an outlier, is because this is showing that 50% are miscellaneous, only 34% brand URL anchors. So my point that I'm trying to make with that is that it actually is a lot easier for link building to local business websites than people think, or at least in my industry it is, because I haven't done a lot of analysis outside of tree services. But in my industry, it's a lot easier than it used to be 5 years ago, when I used to focus on organic rankings, and there used to be literally dozens and sometimes hundreds and even thousands of links. And a lot of the times there was a ton of target or topic anchors, which is keyword only, and target anchors, keyword plus location. But now what I'm seeing is the vast majority of local business websites are ranked on primarily brand/URL anchors and miscellaneous anchors, which makes our job a hell of a lot easier, right? So my point in telling you all of this, guys, is just get your anchor text ratios close. If you have any doubt, then err on the side of brand and URL as your vast majority of anchors, and the second most anchors is miscellaneous, and then sprinkle in target anchors as you see needed or as needed in order to get the result for the ranking that you want. So I didn't put this in the process checklist because I don't recommend, unless you know what you're doing with press releases, I don't recommend this to everybody. But for more advanced people, and what I like to do is I like to publish a press release with a brand anchor linking back to my location landing page. And then I might publish a second press release with a URL anchor linking back to my location landing page. And what that does is it ends up getting my brand URL anchor text ratios really high, like almost 100%. And then what I do is I go in and I start to add in, through other sources, through the Web 2.0 links, the tier 1 entity assets, I start to add in target anchors, which are keyword plus location, and some miscellaneous stuff. And by the way, we're going to get a lot of miscellaneous anchors through the GMB post silos and stuff anyways, if you guys understand that, right? So because to learn more and book. So my point is I like to build, or what I call pillowing, right? I like to seed the site with a bunch of brand/URL anchors, and then I start throughout my tier 1 entity assets building target URLs, so keyword plus location, as well as we're gonna naturally, because we do a lot of iframe stacking, we're gonna get empty anchors and frame anchors, right? Because that's what an iframe is. So we're gonna get a lot of those naturally anyways through the iframe stacks. And in miscellaneous anchors, we're gonna get naturally because we're gonna be publishing a ton of GMB posts. So if you understand that, then it makes it a lot easier to build links to get results. And then all you need to do is just very strategically start tracking your, use a rank tracker and start looking at your organic rankings, and use your tier 1 entity assets to start building target anchors until you achieve the ranking results that you want. So again, that goes back to what I was talking about here with all these different types of pages, guys. ID page, use that page to create, let's see, do I still have that open? Let's see, where is that? Right here. Okay, use the ID page. I'll zoom in on this, guys. I know we're so late, but let me zoom in on this just a little bit more. See that, guys? That's a target anchor. What's it linked to? That's a target anchor that links to the Tree Care HQ Roanoke site, right? That was the GMB site. Tree removal Roanoke VA. What's that linked to? The map CID URL. Okay, you guys get that? The tree trimming Roanoke VA. What's that linked to? This links to, well, in this case, this is my Tree Care HQ directory site. So this is my own site, but I use this as a tier 1 asset. So, because remember, this is a niche specific directory site. I own it. I can edit them. You can see I can edit all this. I have structured data added to this, as well as the Press Advantage organization page and the ID page. All this, by the way, if we were to take a look at this really quickly in a structured data testing tool or the schema markup validator, you'll see the ID page again, schema, local business schema in here. When it reads, the reason why it's reading slow is because it's an iframe stack, an ID page loop. So Google has the bots have a hard time rendering this page because it's reading so many iframes, but you can see here's my local business schema. You guys see that? Same thing goes for the Press Advantage organization page. This page right here, if we were to go view this in a, so all that stuff, guys, again, you start to build all these relationships. You use your tier 1 entity assets to build your target anchors back to your money pages and get your anchor text ratios into this range, whatever the range is. And like I said, if you ever have any doubt, go heavy on brand URL and miscellaneous, and then you just build target anchors as needed until you get the ranking results that you want. And that's how you do local link building, tier 1 anyways. Again, guys, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, but one thing I wanna point out here, oh, by the way, there's another little hack, guys, patch.com, it's free. It's great because it's a very hyper-local site, and you can create free, well, they're not really press releases, but they do index in Google News, and it's free. They're starting to crack down on it a little bit. So if you're going to be doing a lot of these, you want to make sure that you're using like a, you know, like a cache, a profile keeper like Ghost Browser or anything. Daryl might even have a tool for that, but you know, Ghost Browser, Session Splitter, Session Box, you know, formerly Browsio, which I still use. I've got it open right there, actually, believe it or not, I still use Browsio, but something like that so that you have like, you maintain the cache and cookies for each profile. But patch.com classified announcement posts, they actually index in Google News. They're all no follow links, but they're very powerful. So I put that in as a tier 1 entity asset because you can rank those with actually not a whole lot of work. And so they end up ranking quite well. Let me just see if I can find one. I don't know if I can't remember if I did one for Roanoke or not. Roanoke, let me just see if I can find it. Well, there's a press release. As I mentioned, guys, I use press releases for a ton of stuff. There's one that's been picked up by Digital Journal, which will also be in Google's News. That's from Press Advantage. Patch right there. So these will rank, and I know I just did a brand search, but you can, if you optimize these properly, which I show that in the actual GMB process doc, you can actually rank them for the generic keyword search. I have not done any I've not done any link building to this, but if I did, you could throw kitchen sink spam at the patch articles, guys, because they're no follow links anyways. But you can rank these, and so these, and in fact, well, I can't show that because it's one of my. I was going to show you one that I have ranked that is actually ranked the page that it's linking to as well. It's really good, but that's a free thing that you can do, and those will index in Google News. If we go to Google News, we're going to see there is the there's two well, that I don't know why that one, maybe it was just mentioned, but there's the patch article right there that I was just talking about. Okay, so that's a very, very powerful thing too. Last thing I want to mention about this too, guys, is you know, in this diagram right here, I want to point this out. Syndication network properties, if you're using a syndication network, again, it's very important for kind of like validating and solidifying the entity, right? So again, remember, we talked about semantic web. Get it growing your presence in as many places as possible, and in interconnecting those, so interlinking those so that you're making your entity footprint known, and you're adding to the knowledge graph that Google is building for your entity, for your brand. So all of that is really, really important. So syndication networks is a big part of that. SEO Shield properties, period, is a big part of that for what we've developed. However, when we're talking about publishing posts on the blog that syndicate automatically to the network properties, that is great. All of those are great. You should extract the post URLs from your syndication network sites, and then just treat those like GMB post silos, in that you build links and embeds and link building to those post URLs. So that because remember, those post URLs are going to be linking through the post actually up to the top levels, top of silo pages on your money site. And so you can push power through the syndication network properties through those specific post URLs all the way up to your money site page, but it goes through several web 2s at that point. So it's not going to pass any negative link equity to your site. But what I'm talking about here is very specifically not just syndicated posts, but going out and creating entity tuned content separate. So you log into your Blogger blog, that your branded Blogger blog, and you create a separate and unique entity tuned content article, publish a separate post that, again, guys, go in and embed your GMB map, embed your GMB website, link to your GMB website with specific anchor text, a target anchor. You can have an embed and a link on in the same post. So embed your GMB website, embed your GMB map, link to your GMB CID map URL with target anchor text, right? Link to your GMB website with target anchor text. Link to your location landing page with target anchor text or branded or URL anchor. Put all of those into an entity-tuned content tier 1 post as a blogger post. That's separate and apart from syndicated posts. Same thing with Tumblr. Log into Tumblr, do the same thing with a different post, a unique post. Do the same thing with WordPress. Then you can use any one of these. By the way, it doesn't have to be these 3 sites. Those are just 3 that I like. But it's any sort of equivalent type of Web 2.0 property that you can set up a branded profile on, and you can go in and publish posts on. Make sure they do follow links. So these are 3 do follow types. And also make sure they're indexable. There are some other ones like GMB site and things like that that are not indexable unless you pay for an upgrade. So make sure you're using indexable links, platforms. But it doesn't have to be these 3. It's just the 3 that I like. That's why I say or equivalent. Okay. And then, as I mentioned before, press releases are really, really important too. Can't cover tier 2 link building, but I have a really cool, guys, you can read through this and probably figure it out on your own. If you don't, like I said, I'm happy to come back on again. Daryl, this has been an extremely long webinar, and I'd like to wrap it up if possible.
Absolutely. I was going to say, you probably want to get a drink of water after that. They're incredible. You could tell you like to teach, because it seems like you just get going and you just want to keep rolling on it, which is great. I picked up at least 6 or 7 things I did not know, and I've been at this since, forever. So some great nuggets you dropped on this call. So really, really appreciate that.
Awesome.
So let's tell us a little bit more, if you want to get a little bit more in depth on some of your training and the different processes that you teach. You're showing a link on the screen. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, this link here is just to get the Process Street template for the GMB checklist. Okay, so that, again, that's just behind an opt-in, guys. Just opt in. You're going to get access to this, which again, and then from here, this is what I was talking about. If you wanted additional help, look, I'm happy to answer questions on a conceptual level for free during our weekly Hump Day Hangouts. Episode 361 is Wednesday. We've been doing it, like when we hit episode 360, what is it, 364 or something like that? That's 7 years that we've been doing this.
That's amazing.
Every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern for an hour, we answer questions live, free of charge. You can post your questions ahead of time. That's at semanticmastery.com/HDHO. Again, semanticmastery.com/HDHO for Hump Day Hangouts. If you go there, you can post your questions. Even if you can't attend live, we will answer your questions, and you can you can get the answers to them in the replay. I can answer questions conceptually there, like at a high level. If you need nitty gritty, if you have really technical stuff that's going to need some, that kind of stuff, then, we have to answer those in like our paid groups, which would be like the mastermind. Again, this is not really a pitch for this, guys, but I just want to point out at the top of the doc, there's a link, or the Process Street template. There's a link at every one of the modules that links. This is for Daryl's affiliate link, but this shows you our mastermind, what it is, and the different options there are. We have a monthly and a quarterly. But what I would say, guys, is I share absolutely everything in our mastermind. I share process, like this is a checklist, but inside for each one of these processes and like each one of these modules in here, I've got various Process Street templates that have like training, and so that I can delegate a lot of this to VAs. Like, in other words, I share my process templates and stuff inside the mastermind. I also do deep dives on questions if anything's ever unclear. If you need specific over-the-shoulder training videos, like I do those live. We have bi-weekly mastermind webinars. If you have stuff that you need audited, or you need some, for me to look at and give you some pointers, I'm happy to do that. All that kind of stuff. We also do in a Magic Page build group called Build with Bradley. I bought Daryl's Mass Page tools, and so I'm hosting a mini mastermind group for people doing Magic Page builds or any sort of mass page builds. It doesn't have to be Magic Page. And then there's just all kinds of stuff that I do in there, guys. Again, this was not meant to be a pitch, but I would encourage you, if you like the training today and you want more, either join us for Hump Day Hangouts, where I can answer questions at a high level. If you need more additional training, like help, hand-holding type stuff, then the mastermind is where you'd want to be.
Awesome. Do you see the questions now? I made you an organizer, so I'm not sure if you can. Okay. Can I ask you about 3 questions that I might throw your way if you have a few minutes? Okay. First question was from Steve Dimmick. He said, where do you find the CID map link? I think actually I told him that one. But then they said, let's see.
Yeah, I use the Gather Up Chrome extension.
Okay.
So if you go to Google and you just search Gather Up Chrome extension, right there, like it's showing it in suggest, then you can just click through to that and just add it to your, so it's already added. That's what you see up here. But all you
Yep.
would do is go search for the brand. There's a couple of ways to do it. But for example, if I go to Tree Care HQ Roanoke, all right, then when you have a knowledge panel pop, all you have to do is click the Gather Up Chrome extension, and you'll see that's the CID map URL right there.
Cool.
Another way to do it, which again, I mean, there's no sense in just not using that Chrome extension. But if you wanted to, you could also go to the info tab inside of GMB, and where it says view on maps, you copy that link address. And if you put that into a notepad file like this, you need to change the, you see, this is what the format actually looks like. That's the correct format. The way that it gives you, if you copy the address out of, like I just showed you inside the info tab dashboard of the GMB, is first of all, you can get rid of that stuff because that's just like UTM stuff for Google. But what you need to do is you need to modify this slightly. You see the difference, how this has maps. If we were to actually look at this and where it goes, it's actually a 302 redirect to this version. So that, remember, if you want to pass link equity, which is the whole reason we use these, you just want to modify it if you do it that way by just switching this out to www right there, if that makes sense. Now you got the same URL. So again, that would be just going to view on maps, right click, copy link address, or if in Google it's something else, or Chrome, I mean, and you just want to swap out where it says maps.google.com to www.google.com. Okay.
Awesome. Good information. Another question while you're there, Steve was asking, how do you make the appointment menu item in your Google site menu? Is that too specific for this?
No. You'll see it right here. You see how it says that, like this one, Tree Care Roanoke, I don't have a location landing page for, so I don't have an appointment link in here yet. But if we jump over here to, this is the Tree Care HQ Ruckersville location, you'll see right there, it's the appointment links. Not every industry is going to have that, guys. And again, don't let that stop you, as I mentioned before, because some clients want their main website URL as the primary website in the Google My Business, and I get it. It makes sense. For me as an SEO, I want to always swap them, like I was teaching you guys today. But if a client, that's what they want, then so be it. You can still accomplish everything I was talking about through GMB post silos, because remember, it's the CTA buttons act as do follow links too. But what I'm saying is, if you do have an appointment link URL field here in the info tab, then what I recommend is that you put the location landing page there and make the primary website the GMB website. That way you have that make appointment link present on every page and inner page of the GMB website, which means you can power up any part of this and it's going to push page rank through that.
I like it. Jay said, how important are GMB reviews for SEO ranking in your opinion?
Not as important as they used to be, believe it or not. I've tested that. I thought that they were actually weighted heavier in recent, like, last year and a half, 2 years, but actually I believe they're being weighted less. It is still important, but it's, I've tested even fake reviews, and here's the thing if you're going to be doing fake reviews, guys, make sure that you also are getting fake reviews on like a Facebook page that's for that specific location, as well as possibly on like, Yellow Pages and a couple other places. The two that are the most important is if you're going to be doing fake reviews, and I'm going to also, you want to get legit reviews if you can. But if it's for lead gen stuff, a lot of times you're going to need to seed it with fake reviews to begin with. Remember, check your local laws, guys, because every state is different. Some places it's illegal. But if you're going to do fake reviews, I would highly recommend that you also create a Facebook page for that location, and you also get fake reviews on the Facebook page, because that kind of validates the reviews that you're getting on your GMB. If all you get is reviews on your GMB and they're fake, then it's likely that they're going to be just discredited, or they will get ghosted. Like they'll disappear from the reviews. What I found is that it's not as much as important from the SEO standpoint as much as the reviews. There is still a little bit of a boost from them, but it's not as important as it used to. And how do I know that? Because I've got a lot of GMBs that are ranked with little to no reviews. And it might be sandwiched between, like in the B position between A and C, and A might have 218 reviews and C might have 98 reviews, and I've got 1 and I'm in the B position. So I know that I can rank without reviews, but what I found is that more recently, I'm sure you guys have seen this a lot, let's just see, you'll see in the maps where it'll say, you know, this site mentions whatever, and it'll have a like highlighted text that matches the query, and it'll say that. And a lot of the times that kind of association has been pulled or extracted from review text.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot of AI behind the scenes with Google every single
Absolutely. And it's
month.
growing
Yeah.
by the minute.
Yeah, for sure. Another couple questions here. Don asks, can articles be used for both silo types? I'm assuming yes.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
He wants to know if you can use articles for both of those silo types that you were talking about, the GMB silos and the web silos for the Google sites.
Like what is articles though? You said like I'm not.
Articles, like they have an article written,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean however you develop the content.
yeah.
We develop our content in house using AI assisted tools, things like Page Rewriter, Jarvis, Outranking.io has an AI writing assistant built into it. Phrase.io is another one. Like so, we develop most of our content in house for money site like money site content, which like I said, I also consider GMB websites money site content, but for tier one entity assets, a lot of times we'll rephrase stuff using the AI rephrasing tools. Siphon AI does that, as I understand now. Or we'll also, for like GMB posts, like I mentioned before, we will also we'll use other people's content, but then cite the source, not full text. We'll just summarize other people's content and then cite the source, which is always important.
Very good, very good. Steve Dimick asks, is there a coupon code for Daryl special? I don't think we set anything up for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Wow. All I gotta say is you really didn't hold anything back here. I know you have a lot of stuff in your mastermind and you're always discovering new things, but I did not expect so much. It's like a knowledge dump of some really great info, and I really appreciate you coming on and spending some of your day with us today.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. And like I said, guys, this is something that I've developed. It was originally just for me internally, and then I realized the value of this to like our colleagues in this industry, which are all of you that are here today. And you know, there's so many local businesses struggling right now, guys, because of the pandemic and everything else. And you know, just the nature of our economy right now and everything else. Like right now, we can be a gift from God to them. And this process doc right here, this template, I swear, if you apply everything here, even in the most competitive industries, you can get results in 90 days. I mean, I didn't even start this webinar like I usually do, showing results. But if you guys want to see that, I'll record a little compendium, like follow-up video that Daryl can post. I can show you multiple examples of results where we've gone from 21 plus across a map grid, a geo grid. I use Bright Local search grids, but 21 plus across a 5x5 map with 1 mile spacing, so 25 square mile area, to a average of 1.5, 1.9 or whatever across 225 square miles, 15 by 15 grid in a matter of 90 days. And no shit, and that's from using this particular method. And again, you don't even have to apply everything here. What's important is get these top 3 done, and then you start on the link building stuff until you start to see results, and then that leaves you with a lot in reserves in case you need it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like sometimes with MassPage, I don't do that because all I'm doing is sending my best practices out for that given site, but then I'm rinsing and repeating. So if I need to make changes, I can always do that on the next site. So I don't really hold stuff back. However, I get what you're saying when you're dealing with a competitive situation like GMBs. You want to keep some ammo left, as you said, because there's a finite amount of optimization you can do for GMBs.
That's right.
Whereas a website, you can kind of rinse and repeat and then try your new methods on the next website if you're doing mass building. So I think that's really some great information.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, no, but we would love to have you back sometime. If you want to, go a little bit longer on anything else, that's fine. But yeah, we definitely took up a lot of people's time today. Please be sure to get this. It is absolutely free for you to get this process. He has links to the Google Sheets. He has the whole checklist for you. So let's make sure that they have that. Do you have that link again? So we just close with that.
Yes, sir. This one.
Yep. So gmbprocess.com/MPT for Mass Page Tools, MPT. And just opt in with that, and you'll be able to download the template for there. Okay.
That's it. And like I said, guys, if you have any questions, you can always ask us at Hump Day Hangouts. Daryl, I don't know if you want to include that in the replay, because again, those are free, 100% free, but that's semanticmastery.com/HDHO for Hump Day Hangouts. And, again, I can answer questions on a kind of a high level there in case you guys have any questions about that. We're almost to our 7-year anniversary, so we would appreciate it. If you guys have any questions about SEO, GMB stuff, come join us over there. It's free.
That's great. And if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, make sure you put a like. It helps the algorithm so other people can see this information. So we really do appreciate that. All right. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Guys, everyone for joining us so long and staying to the end. I got to tell you, man, hardly anybody checked out. They tuned in and they didn't check out here for 3 hours. So
I'm sorry you had to put up with me for 3 hours, but
this has been great content, Brad.